is actually often always not the the way to go, because things can change in a twinkling of an eye.
So the headline on the Standard is Uhuru and Raila take handshake to US prayer talks, right? So the president and the former prime minister have been invited to share their experiences on the handshake at a key event in the US. If they honor the invite, it will mark the first time that the two leaders who struck a political truce following the disputed 2017 presidential election will take to the international stage to extol the agreement that united their feuding political camps and which has led to the BBI. So about the invite, the joint keynote speakers at the international lunch. The event is hosted by members of the U.S. Congress. It's an invite-only affair attended by elite individuals in politics, society, and business. The event is on the sidelines of the National Prayer Breakfast in Washington and will be on February 5th and 6th. So if they agree to go, they'll be going there to talk about the virtues of shaking hands. Why it's important to look at your opponent in the eye
while shaking their hand.
And shake their hand.
Got it. Well, it seems that Raila Odinga says his family is only worth 2 billion shillings. And he was very clear about his wealth and how much they have. And of course, this was during an interview that he held yesterday. And he said his family's net worth is about 2 billion shillings. He became the highest ranking politician in the country to publicly disclose his wealth. He says, people say I'm very rich, I quote. I am not rich. I'm just about 2 billion shillings wealthy, which we own collectively as the Odinga family. He denied suggestions that the Odinga family had used...
The Odinga family is Raila's family, or is it Jaramogi's family? That is something else. I mean, does it include his sisters and brothers?
Well, he says the Odinga family, so I'm liking to assume...
him and his wife and his children?
It would be an interesting thing. It would have been interesting to find the details of this, but he has said very clearly it's the Odinga family. So he said... Okay, well, interestingly enough, he says, our father died a poor man. There is nothing we inherited from him as his children. It must be remembered that throughout his life, he was in government for only 2.5 years. So he's speaking about himself.
Oh, so that would be a very good source of wealth. If he had been in government longer, he'd have made some more money.
There you go. So 2.5 years was not enough for him to amass the wealth that he could have been or should have been looking for.
All right.
But that's what we have.
Okay. It sounds like 2 billion is a small amount, but it's not. Somebody being worth 2 billion shillings, that's some good cash, man.
It is.
He says, we are not wealthy. Yeah, right. Telling other people in Kenya that you are not wealthy just because you have 2 billion shillings, you're worth 2 billion shillings?
Only.
Surely. How many people are worth 2 million shillings?
How many people are worth 200,000 shillings? Let's be very careful about what, even here in Kenya, we must also understand that the gap between the rich and the poor is quite something. How many people can say that over a year they've amassed, amassed 200,000?
How many taxpayers are worth that much?
Exactly.
No, let's even go to 2 million. How many taxpayers are worth 2 million shillings? So we can say that they work, they earn a salary, they are able to, they should be able to save and invest. Are they able to save and invest? And accumulate their wealth to 2 million. How many are?
I doubt it greatly.
So you can't really say it's only 2 billion. It's actually he's worth 2 billion shillings, and that's good enough for their family. It's good. Kudos to them.
Right. Okay, something that's taken the world by storm, and I think something that we should be quite careful about. It's a grave situation for Kenyans in China. Students say embassy officials are not proactive as other nations evacuate their citizens. Kenyans in China are worried that the government is not proactive in protecting its citizens from the new respiratory virus ripping through the Asian nation. At least 48 million people were Saturday put under quarantine in 15 Chinese cities in the central Hubei province to stop the spread of the pneumonia-like virus. 48 million people were... This happened as China kicked off its traditional New Year celebrations amid a backdrop of caution and stark measures seeking to contain the novel coronavirus suspected to have originated in a live animal market in the city of Wuhan. Since the disease can spread from human to human, the Chinese government ordered the lockdown to central China with a travel ban issued to areas where the virus was first encountered. Now, of course, we've seen the United States, France and Russia having been reported to be evacuating their citizens. But despite travel bans being declared by the Chinese government, the Washington Post report that the U.S. plan to fly citizens and diplomats out via charter flight. That's how serious some countries are taking it. France was negotiating a deal with China to see its nationals transported to Changisha.
It's the citizens in those particular regions.
Yes.
Is it 3 districts, 3 cities, 1 province?
No,
3
provinces.
provinces. 3 provinces.
But we've seen that it's moving them to safer provinces. But in this case, we have the US, for example, removing them from China altogether. Absolutely. Now, as this happens, Kenyan students based in different cities in China yesterday spoke, expressing fears that the government has not uttered a word in terms of what is going to happen. It wasn't until Saturday afternoon that the representative from the embassy, only identified as Dr. Robert, reached out to a students group in Beijing requesting for contacts of all Kenyans in Wuhan. But after that, there's been radio silence in terms of then what is going to happen.
Okay.
It's quite a grave one because we have quite a number of people who've been, put out of circulation. Of course, we've seen the harrowing videos of people basically dropping down.
In that thing.
In the streets.
But the thing that we notice about China is how quick they are to react to something like this,
Oh, right. I mean, the response.
Quarantining 48 million people is quarantining the entire country of Kenya and saying all Kenyans, you stay here, you're not leaving. That's a huge operation.
It is.
Also, you saw the other videos that were coming out of the Chinese media that they are putting up a hospital larger than KNH.
Understand,
Right?
this is the thing for me. They're building a hospital in response to this
from
disease.
ground up, and it'll be ready next week.
Okay,
An entire hospital.
I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm laughing at the idea that something like this can be done once people put their minds to something and say, look, in order for us to stop this or in order for us to mitigate this is what we need to do. Let's go, move, done.
City Muga.
Eric Latif.
Good morning.
City Muga.
New Oko.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Pole.
Asante.
Kwa masaibu.
Hizo bwana.
It's normal.
They say these things are sent to try you and to make you stronger.
Well, right? What doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
And you heal.
There you go. Had a good weekend though?
Yes, very, very pleasant indeed.
Right.
Yes.
So as you walked in, we were talking about the coronavirus that's ravaging China and the reaction by the Chinese government to this, quarantining 3 entire provinces and saying everybody here, stay in, don't come out, right?
Yeah.
And putting up a hospital in 2 weeks. A hospital large enough, it's actually covering a couple of acres. It's a hospital large enough to take in hundreds of patients at a go.
What this tells you, among other things, is just how concerned they are about the citizenry.
About the citizenry.
Yes, we've had I guess the Western press has always given us the most negative aspects of China that you could possibly imagine.
Mm-hmm.
But this one, there is actually absolutely no Western country that has even attempted to do what these people have done. No one has done this before. Other places, the whole thing would just have been shut down, and there would have been as little information as possible coming out. And if there was information about deaths, it would be counted, and it'd be told the information is incorrect.
We'd be told we are working,
Managing.
we're managing this thing.
If you're told
we are calling for international assistance. One thing or the other. We don't know how many people have left.
Exactly. And secondly, you'd be told, well, you've been hearing of these numbers of people who have passed away, but we have people on the ground, and it's a quarter of that number.
Yes.
Then 3 months down the line, you're actually told that the numbers you got originally were actually not even true, in the sense that they had downsized the number. They'd given you fewer statistics. Wow. This is something. This is, you couldn't ask for a better example of what preparedness means
and response
means, and what an interest in the welfare of the citizenry means. You cannot get a better example than this.
Indeed.
Yes.
And so those complaints coming out of the Kenyans, who are the Kenyan students in that country, they're saying, well, we are not hearing anything from our embassy. Now, this is the time when apparently the embassy is saying, can we get contacts of all Kenyans in those 3 provinces? Really? You should be having that data.
You know,
Especially if they are students and they are there legally, then you should have ensured that you constantly have an updated database.
But let me ask, even if you talk about legally, if people go to China, surely they go with a visa, don't they?
They do.
And they leave through this same airport that we have here.
They do.
And destinations are known because you're boarding this plane. There's hardly anything that is not known about your exit, is it?
Yes.
So it's not that the data is not available.
It is. And in fact, in China, wherever you go, you need to go and report to the local police station.
Yes.
Actually, in China. If you've gone and you're going to visit, let's say you're going to visit Shanghai, as soon as you arrive, you go to the local police station, you say, I am here, I'm visiting so-and-so, this is the purpose for my visit, and I'm expected to be here for this long. So the Chinese government already knows this is a person who's here. They had a visa.
People are
and they have
accounted
arrived.
for.
They're accounted for.
But
the Kenyan embassy should have access to that information. Or basically just activate a network and say all Kenyans when you arrive, especially students, you can say business people come in and go as well, those ones. But students who are there for long, that is the first thing that you'll be able to have. People working there, people who are studying in China.
We've complained as Kenyans about the Ujamaa system or the remnants of it.
Yep.
And it is assumed it is intrusive. The same thing happens. People know who you are, they know where you've come from, they know who you're visiting, they know what your business is.
And for how long you intend to be there.
Now, in such a case, tell me, if, say, for instance, somebody is exposed as a carrier of some disease, it then becomes very, very easy to understand who he has been in contact with or she has been in contact with.
Yes.
It's easy to understand where they've gone. Everything about it, it makes it very, very easy to stem what might, if not stemmed, would be an epidemic.
Yep.
Yes.
True.
Well, this is the other side of the coin, and it's an interesting side.
It is.
Let's see how it plays out, though.
This one, we can almost tell. Remember, this isn't the first time we've had these virus attacks. There's been the Zika virus. There's been then the fundamental
SARS virus,
the bird flu. But the fundamental problem with viruses is that they have no cure.
That's the thing.
That's the problem. So, anyway,
AIC installs a new presiding bishop. Bishop Yego, what's his first name? Silas Yego?
Yes.
Yes.
He was Silas. Has retired.
Bishop Silas Yego has retired after 18 years at the helm of the church. And now they've installed a new bishop. Abraham Mulua was yesterday installed as the AIC presiding bishop. Colorful ceremony attended by very many bishops and pastors from around the country. And also the head of state and his deputy were there. Yeah. So the AIC church, at least, turns a leaf nicely and quietly and peacefully. Not to mention that it had not been prolonged, right?
Well, one of the things about our churches, in many cases, you'll find they are very much a clear representation of what we are outside the church.
Yeah.
So when you have a peaceful transition like this, it is a good thing. But usually you will find that whatever politics there was, they've kept under wraps.
Yeah, they've managed it very well.
In-house. It doesn't spill out.
Strongly about the leadership of Bishop Yego.
Yes, it does. It doesn't spill out. It doesn't become one of these shouting matches or mudslinging matches that we are often accustomed to, even within our church setting.
It was threatening to, remember?
It was.
It was bubbling under. The issue of tribe, of course, came to the fore.
There are actually just, I think, 3 tribes in which the AIC denomination has a preeminent position: the Kamba, the Kalenjin, and the Luo. It's just those 3. I mean, the AIC churches elsewhere.
The AIC churches all over the country, but the numbers.
But the numbers are in those 3 communities. Yes. And they're one of the earliest. It was African Inland Church, was African Inland Mission to begin with.
Yeah.
And over time, it evolved and became that. Yes.
Became a big one.
But they have actually a very big international presence.
It actually broke up in the central. Remember, the African Inland Mission, there were people in central Kenya who rejected the whole idea of the African Inland Mission.
They did?
Yeah, because, see, they were really, really strong on education, and education was ending at, what was that stage? Standard 4. What was it called? Intermediate. So because it was ending at intermediate, these people in central Kenya said, no, we want our children to continue. So they broke away from Africa Inland Mission and they formed their...
It's called independent churches.
That's right. Now it started coming to AIPCA. No, in fact, even before the AIPCA, there's another one they came
up with. By the way, the independent churches came long before the AIPCA.
The initial ones.
Yes. Oh, yes, because they realized that, what we want Here you are. You can see what the education that the white people have and the benefit. You can see. It's
Yeah.
not something you're being told. And then you're being told, no, you just stay here.
Go up to 4.
Okay. Once you understand wood and how you can shape it, and how you can pummel metal until it takes the shape you want, that's adequate. Okay. So people said, wait.
No way.
We get you, but we also want to do such things. Yeah. So
We want more.
So they broke away, and the AIPC, by the time they were coming in, they were just breaking away further and realizing. But it is symptomatic of very many denominations we have in this country. Like, for instance, if you look at the churches in Western Kenya that are called Roho this, Roho the other, Roho the other, they are breakaways from the Pentecostal churches.
Right.
You have one called Nomia. It was given to me. It's a breakaway again from the Anglican Church.
No me.
Yes. You have Legio Maria. It's a breakaway from the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
So many of these denominations that some people like to call sects, they are breakaway churches from the mother churches. And usually it was on certain principles. Some people felt, why should I limit myself to one wife? And the Old Testament clearly indicates. In fact, there's a gentleman who actually had a whole population. In fact, it's like a whole country of wives.
And he was the wisest man on earth.
And just in case you thought it ended with the wives, he threw in concubines just to spice up the whole situation. So,
which of course is used as reason why certain people behave in certain ways.
It is not used as a reason. It is used as the pillar. It's the structural foundation on which
people now
certain
operate.
Points of view. Yes, and tell it's biblical.
It's a measure of wisdom.
Right. As having been applied by the world's wisest man.
Yes, those who are less wise.
Those who are less wise will
the ones who
confine
don't get it.
themselves.
Even if you leave religion aside, if you go to communities where people have practiced polygamy avidly, when you say you have one wife, there is this genuine look of sympathy that
Yes, like
people feel, hey, my friend, you really must be suffering. And you're thinking, I am not suffering. I think it is you who is suffering. And the truth is, that suffering you think they have, they don't see it.
they don't. They don't see it.
Just like they don't see. I mean, they can't understand that you're actually not suffering.
It's all in your eyes and perspectives. What else do you have in the
There's
nation
something
city?
that came up. It did the rounds in social media. By the time I get it, it really means it did some serious rounds, okay? Because I don't really get these things very often. But there was this lady, an activist, we are told, who first came to our attention when she and a policeman seemed to be having some altercation in her car.
Yes.
And the altercation was verbal and loud.
And she was recording it.
She was recording it. And then I think the police all decided to do their bit of recording. And they went to her house, I'm told. She was arrested, went to the police station. She was later released. Everything that happened has its interest. But the thing that occurred to me as I was watching the clip that was doing the rounds, if that policeman was in her car, he hadn't harmed her in any way, I asked myself, was it necessary to make that amount of noise? I just asked.
Was it necessary for who to make the amount of noise?
This lady.
For the lady?
Yes. Number one, because she drew attention to herself and an entire crowd came in. Somebody will tell me, yes, policemen are in the habit of doing this and the other and the other and the other.
Yep.
And I said, okay, I understand. But the end result of that, what has it actually done? What is it that we...
It has exposed the police for what they are.
Actually, that's...
Arrogant, rude, brutal.
Let's see how before you go on with that, let's see how we can connect two of these, because those adjectives that you used just now. Then, of course, we saw this shooting that occurred in Ahero yesterday, where a young man who had been knocked by a certain vehicle. His cousin then basically tried to stop the vehicle that hit this young man, to basically get them to answer for what it is that they did. Now, upon calling the police came along and they were quite annoyed in whatever happened, and they ended up shooting this young man who was basically asking questions. So you've got somebody who was knocked by a vehicle, you've got another one then who was shot and killed, and now the reasons that are trying to be given are that from the police commandants of that area is that the young man had threatened to take a pistol from one of the policemen.
He wanted to disarm the police.
But according to witness reports that the police showed up. They were angry for whatever reason. They were annoyed, and this one of the policemen basically withdrew his pistol, cocked his gun, and shot this young man without asking any questions.
And the fellow died.
And he died. Like that. So in this case, those adjectives that you use now, of course, can be applied in this case. Now go back to this story.
So your sister has been knocked down by a vehicle, and you're agitating for the driver
to stop. Yes.
And also to face the law. And the law enforcer comes. Was it necessary for the boy to stop the vehicle? Was it necessary for the boy to cause a fracas? Was it necessary for the police to come? Was it necessary for...
I'm interrogating the issue for a simple reason. I do not want to take everything I have seen on social media at face value and even what I read on the Sunday papers at face value. What I do know is this. There is no indication by the police or by this lady that when she was stopped, the policeman who stopped her, gave her reason as to why he wanted to enter her car and also gave her reasons as to why he had stopped her. Because they're actually required to.
They are, and from what I've read is that they actually are allowed to get into your vehicle.
The law allows them. There seems to have been that. Previously, that law didn't, if I remember correctly. That law,
it's still very great. This is one of those things where lawyers argue on one issue and then they argue on the other. They still say that, yes, they shouldn't enter your vehicle without justifiable reason, right? And then the policeman will say, I had reason. I stopped you,
but
and I told you I wanted us to go to the police
actually, they must explain to you.
Yes, and all those things.
They have to. You see,
and always when the police officer is saying, let me open the door, let me get into the vehicle, they'll have explained. They'll have told you WAPI license, okay, expired. WAPI insurance, expired. Or your vehicle, or your tires are worn out. Or your light is not working.
You are talking on the phone.
Twendekwa station. So they've explained. Can we say that they have therefore explained the reason that they want to...
I said that from what I read, that bit that we're talking about did not come out.
Yeah.
Because if it comes out, then it changes that narrative of the police being someone who harasses, etc., etc., etc. This is the point I was getting at. Because if they've given you reason as to why they're doing what they're doing, they've done their duty.
They've done their duty, absolutely.
Yes,
now, in the absence of such an explanation, is then now that we can come to that other conclusion that they actually are harassing people. In the case of a hero, for example, there was no explanation that was made. Gentleman comes out, cocks his gun, shoots a young man who was asking questions about why his cousin had been knocked on by this vehicle, and the vehicle was then allowed to go. No conversation was had.
I want to hear more from that hero incident because it sounds that there's
something hasn't quite connected.
There's some disconnect here.
Yes,
a cop just coming and
cocking a gun and shooting you
hardly happens.
This is why it's so mysterious, because then eyewitness reports, and then of course the police commandant of the area then said he too would like to know exactly what more happened,
circumstances that led to.
But his officers told him that this young man was quite irate, and he was making threats that if they didn't do something about his brother who had been knocked down by the...
doesn't justify being shot to death.
It does not at all.
You can basically,
according to the commandant, you can arrest him and say
you can contain the boy.
You can contain him and ask him and say, what was going on here? Why are you making all this noise? Sit here until we can find out the reason.
Surely, if you must shoot him, the idea is to disable him and
not
prevent
to
him,
kill
not
him.
to kill him.
There we go.
Yes. See, now this is where the conversation changes, but it must be interrogated, because to take everything at face value and to say this is what happened, without it coming out, then...
Unfortunately, this is where we are right now, because the Kisumu commandant has basically said that he's standing with his police officers and he's saying that they were justified in killing this young man.
Remember, you can download the Standard e-paper app from Google Play Store and Apple App Store, and just one subscription fee, you get to access all of Standard Group's publications. Good morning, it's 6:30. Let's take a look at what's happening on the roads and continue the conversation.
(24/7) around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Ignorance is no defense. And why would you not be in the know when you have a 24 hours dedicated news channel just for you? We make sure you are in the know and stay in the know. KTN News. Get the whole story. Available on GoTV Channel 94, StarTimes Channel 522, Bamba Channel 2, DSTV Channel 274, and Signet Channel 26.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM. Traffic.
All right, folks, it's a Monday morning and it's promising to serve us quite a lot today on the roads. Unfortunately, on the Red Hill bypass, you're being asked to approach with caution because the retaining wall, unfortunately, has collapsed. So coming in and outbound, you need to be very careful when approaching that area because you don't know what you'll find on the road and it's likely to serve up some traffic this morning. All right, Thika Road, if you've passed this particular time, this means that you will be stuck in traffic for some time now, all the way from Safari Park Hotel, leading and snaking all the way down the road, heading towards the Pangani underpass. We're going to see quite a lot of traffic this morning. It is Monday morning. Everybody's trying to get out. Clearly, Rongai needs a dual carriageway and a bus stop because at 5 o'clock this morning, we already saw traffic on that road. Of course, now trying to feed into Langata Road as far back as Bomas of Kenya. So we have traffic on this road as well. We'll look at what it looks like in different parts, but Thika Road and Langata Road already heading to town, moving very, very slowly right now. We'll enter into traffic hour in a few minutes and we'll let you know what alternates you can use if you get stuck. 0719-012-600. Let us know if you see anything we should know about or hit us on Twitter, Spice FM KE.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
In the Situation Room this morning, Eric Latif, CT Muga, and Nduoko. The live streams are up on our digital platforms, www.spicefm.co.ke. We are live on Facebook, SpiceFMKE. We are live on Twitter, @SpiceFMKE. We are also live on YouTube. SpiceFMKE is a channel. Good morning. Let's take a look at a top story. So we saw what happened over the weekend, of course, in Mombasa. This is the Mumangina Drive. It's now called the Mamangina Waterfront.
Yes.
Right?
It has always been a waterfront.
Now it's not properly
It's called what it is.
what it is. It was not just a drive.
No, it was a waterfront.
All right. So the BBI rally took place, and it was, of course, attended by the Tanga wing of Jubilee that has previously not attended them. And we saw among them the leaders who were there, and they spoke. Elgeyo Marakwet, Senator Kipchumba Murkomen, who's the Senate Majority Leader, he was there and he toed the line. Now we know that the Tanga group is in Naivasha this morning. Fallout in Jubilee of a BBI retreat in Naivasha. And that's what we have in page 10 of the Standard. It's also been given a couple of headlines in the Nation this morning. So what we were discussing about it, we discussed about it on Friday and said appears to be like a change of tune. And we were like, no, not necessarily. This is politics. So they went there and they basically played to the gallery. Yes, we're here. BBI is about peace. It's about peace for the country. It's about bringing the whole nation together, about building bridges. And, even if it means that we go to a referendum, let's go to a referendum and let the people of Kenya decide. But then, of course, you also saw immediately after that, the main conveners of the meeting took over and the whole conversation went back to the same old. And they come up with resolutions.
It's interesting because one would have thought that, of course, listening to the expressions made by Senator Murkomen and even the way in which he welcomed and addressed Raila Odinga during his speech, you would have thought, okay, all right, there seems to be a wind of change that's blowing, right? Or at least getting onto this particular train before it leaves the station, or rather hop on as it has left the station. And of course, not looking at the depth of the kind of politics that we've seen playing out here, you would have thought, okay, maybe there has been a change of heart, right? But for me, it was very clear that, of course, it was the face of politics that was showing its side there and saying, look, for the purposes of this meeting and to show that, yes, we're probably on the same side of this, or for this moment in time, let's make everybody think or let it appear to be that we are like-minded. But of course, it never goes beyond the face.
It's stealing
value.
the thunder. It's basically saying you will no longer brand us as anti-BBI.
No. We are with you.
We are not
100%.
anti-BBI.
Even if we're not with you, we're not anti-BBI.
Yep.
Exactly. Now, whatever tactics we choose to employ in the near future, that's totally up to us.
She'll also be
But
doing
we've
exactly what you're
primed-
doing.
there you go.
We'll be going around the country talking about BBI, just
But
like
we've
you are.
primed the ground to let you know that we are not coming in any kind of conflict or any kind of way that would be different from you. But anybody who looked or listened to what he said over the weekend and actually went along with it and believed that, yes, we are together in this, unfortunately, it would be quite myopic.
Well, this is the 360 that we spoke of. And it isn't new. This is Kenyan politicians at their very, very best. Looking after self-interest, really. Because if they're doing the very thing that they were criticizing and they had a valid position to criticize it, because if you have something that has worked and it has been heralded as something that is positive, and then you change the manner in which you now want to manage it, in addition to what people knew, you throw in rallies, I think those who are questioning it were very much within their rights to question and say, look, it's like we've had this. It worked. No one kicked a fuss about it. Murmurs here and there, but that was it. When they said this is what we found, people said, it sounds really good, doesn't it?
Carry on.
Now, when the rallies came in, that's when the tunes began to change. And to ask and interrogate that, in my opinion, is correct. But of significance, again, social media at its best, when people were interviewed on that particular matter, at least the segments that the social media decided to spread, it's like the conversation had been choreographed. The people spoken to kept talking about the port. And if they just ended up by saying, well, the SGR seems to have taken away jobs in the transport sector, it would say, okay. But they kept saying they have taken the port business to Naivasha. Repeatedly.
The port has gone to
Naivasha. Essentially, it's like you translocated it from Mombasa, took it to Naivasha.
Right.
Now, I heard that over and over, and then there was a talk of our young people whose jobs have gone and what have you. What struck me when I listened to this, I said, it's amazing what people anticipate from something like the BBI. Because that's what I was hearing. I was hearing that we have a problem, and this is what we consider our problem to be. And this BBI is supposed to address this problem. But two things came up. We haven't seen it, we haven't read it.
That's constant.
Yes.
We haven't seen it, we haven't read it, but at the end of the meeting, we are going to have a declaration.
Yes. And at the end of the meeting, people will say, there's only one particular lady who said, well, we were taken to this meeting, it was explained to us. The question I'm asking is, after whatever I'm saying is, why is it not available to be read?
This is the thing, and I think that's one big question that everybody's asking in terms of, okay, this document is out,
Should
right?
it be
It's somewhere. It's not supposed to be some kind of
No, it's not being
fossil.
hidden. It's not being hidden.
Yeah.
But it isn't readily
It is
or publicly
not
available
available
in a way that one could actually get access to it.
For it to go through now this stage.
Yes.
This is like what
And
the Senate
reading
Speaker
and
was telling us.
understanding
This
of
is
it
a
is
validation
critical.
stage.
It's critical at this
Come
stage.
up with a report.
Yeah.
Let's see. All right. So it makes sense. This is what we had said. This it aligns to our needs. But I'm seeing one of the reasons why it's not being spread around is because if you look at all those meetings, what they're talking about is not what is in the BBI report. Is in what they should see in the outcome, the very end of this BBI. Powerful prime minister with 2 deputies, right? That is not in the BBI report. The other thing is the regional government. It's not in the BBI report, but it keeps coming out. Like now in the coast, talking about dividing coast into 2.
Into 2.
So we have the upper coast and the lower coast.
We've always had the upper and lower coast.
Lower
always.
Coast. But now we make them at regional governments, and we have a governor for the upper coast and a governor for the lower coast, which is above the 3 governors in each of those areas. This idea of regional governments, to me...
You know what? Do you know where they've picked this thing up from? From the idea of the economic blocks that we spoke of in this particular station a while back.
Yep.
So they now want to turn economic blocks into political blocks.
That's it.
Yes. Essentially, if you ask me, this is giving somebody else a job.
That's purely what it is. Not just a job, but a hand into the cookie jar.
Yes.
Basically, just telling them, here is the jar. Dip your hand in it.
In fact,
Because when you say this, when you say you create a regional government, so we have 47 governors, then you have, let's say, the 16 regional governments. So the idea is either have 16 regional governments or you go back to the old provinces and have 8 regional governments. When you have a regional government, if you have a governor, you must have an assembly. Right? That means that you then create functions. If you create functions, then you resource those functions, which means that money goes to this regional governor. What is the regional governor doing? You're denying money to go to the ward because you want the money to go to some regional governor. Let's now say Amason Kingi, for example, is elected as the regional governor for the Upper Coast.
Lower. That would be lower.
That would be lower
Upper
coast.
is Taita Taveta, and yes.
All right. So this one, I think they were calling it the Upper, which was the 3 counties of Kilifi, Tana River and Lamu. And then the other one is Taita Taveta, Mombasa and Kwale.
The name upper and lower were related to the altitude. And the closer you get to the sea, the lower the altitude. The further away you move, you are going up. So it's not that some people are financially lower enabled.
Yeah,
There's no politics to it.
Split it into 2. Let's just say that in those 3 counties, that then the one who's retiring here, because Tana River does not have a governor who's on his 2nd term, neither does Lamu. So only Amason Kingi is serving his 2nd term. So Amason Kingi, for example, is elected into the regional governor. So what will he be doing? Is he going to be in charge of the 3 governors who are elected in those? What's the job of the regional governor? Shall we be sending money? If you're talking about sending money from the national government to the regional government
You see, the one thing that the proponents of the BBI seem to have seen or may not have seen is the backlash from this. Because most counties have not achieved the goal that was intended. They haven't empowered their people, neither have they actually changed their station significantly. If anything, there are those who argue they are poorer as a result of the county governments that they have, and for reasons that are best known to us. So now you're telling them that you're going to create yet another body where our funds are going to be going to.
Yeah.
And you're going to be asked, for what purpose exactly? How is this going to improve this situation we already have that we're unhappy with? How? There are many positive things that county governments, one could argue, have done. But when you had a unitary government where there were no such things as just provinces, these things used to get done.
Anyway.
That is the point. Even better, one could argue.
It's just that they took time, but eventually they'll get done.
They would get done.
Believe me,
Or you
they
can
got
say,
it done.
or you can say that there was no direct public participation. Now
No,
here it's closer. To
Actually,
public participation.
with what they called the
DDCs.
yes, or the district focus program, there was the element of that. And they could argue they had chiefs barazas, which have always been there where they disseminated the information. They could argue. The beef was this. Power was centered on one particular individual at the very top.
Yeah.
And if you displease them, woe betide you. That was the fundamental beef. Now, you disseminate that power, and the very thing that we saw at the top has been disseminated as well.
They're forgetting one of the fundamentals also of devolution is actually, apart from just decentralizing that power, it's actually taking power to the people. That's why the whole concept of public participation, the entire conversation about having the county assemblies and the ward leaders is to ensure that the people are the ones who are deciding what they need and what they want done.
Very true.
So it's a bottoms-up
You
approach.
legislate it so that it's not out of the good heart of the leader. No. It's something they must do, and they can be held accountable.
Yes.
Because even before devolution, just like we keep giving McQueen as an example, there were MPs who are models.
Yep.
The way they managed their business, the way, even when CDF came in, the way they managed the CDF, the way you saw progress, but it wasn't legislated. Now, there's a tricky thing. We now have it legislated, even among the political class, like you have MCAs and what have you.
Yeah.
And you have to look for that change.
Right. If you want to say. Well, regardless of which direction all of this is flowing, and I mean, it's clear that what we saw and then what is actually happening currently is totally different as concerns these politics with what will happen in Naivasha this weekend. Of course, allied DP Ruto allies within Jubilee are in Naivasha this weekend, or rather today, as from yesterday. And according to Gatundu South MP, what he has said, Moses Kuria, is that excuse me, that what they're looking at is putting their heads together and come up with a timetable for the complementary meetings. Complementary meetings, of course, to what is going on with the other side of the brigade. And also they're trying to chart their course for 2022. So
let's discuss that when we come out of this short break. It's 13 minutes to 7 o'clock. This is the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. In the room, we have CT Muga Nduoko. And I am Eric Latif. Good morning.
Spice FM, Malindi. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
So, Tanga MPs have converged in Naivasha, and they're saying this is a Jubilee Parliamentary Group meeting. First of all, let's just call that BS, right? A parliamentary group meeting will be called by the leader of the party. It's not going to be called by one of the MPs. That's how it should be called. Also, a parliamentary group meeting would, would also be have been announced properly by the party structures, and not all members would be able to attend. Now, of course, a section of MPs allied to the President Uhuru Kenyatta have snubbed the retreat organized by the Deputy President's camp, arguing that it has been disguised as a forum on constitutional reforms. They are dismissing the meeting that opens today in Naivasha as selfish and out to divide the country through holding parallel gatherings to the ongoing BBI rallies.
But this is what they said they were going to do. They're actually doing what they said. The rare occurrences where that actually happens. But in this case, they said we will attend the meetings, but at the same time, we are going to also do our side of things. And this is exactly what they're doing. Now, basically, what they've said is that we're going to Naivasha to have a time where we can
come up with a timetable of how we're going to do our BBI rallies. We're going to plan
how we're going to do our own rallies. And of course, if it does anything, it's fostering division. It's clear. I mean, there's a clear divide already. But if anything, it entrenches it even deeper. And we're looking at the possible divisions because this is out of the ruling party. We're not talking about a different party. We're not talking about opposition as it were. When we're looking at the real opposition between government, of course, and then opposition. This is the ruling party divided. And they've decided that this is what we're doing. Last week, if it was obscure in any way, now it is very clear that there are factions, there's division, and this is the way in which they want to go. On top of this, apart from just BBI, they've also made it very clear that they're charting the course for 2022. They want to align themselves, they want to line up, and they said, we want to see who is going to be in our lineup.
Yep.
For 2022.
Because it's emerged from the other side as well. I mean, what keeps coming out of the Kisii, Kakamega, now Mombasa is Raila's lineup shaping up.
Oh, of course.
For the 2022.
Yeah.
So if you are the opposition, if you are the person who's going to be challenging Raila in the presidency, you'd be stupid not to.
You would be stupid not
come
to.
Up with your own
because if you sat there with your hands in your laps, twiddling your thumbs, you'd be left in the arena like everybody else, or you'd be left in the gallery watching the display of what's going on. Because this is what we see. And really, if you want to put divisive politics aside, if you really are not getting on it and getting at it right now, you're not going to be part of this whole circus. You won't. So I think that's very clear for some people now. If we see what other people are doing, if we don't do the same, we're not going to be players in this game.
Think about it. You're a politician. And you can see this group, wherever they go, they have this massive crowd who are receiving the same message at the same time. And you're not part of it.
And you're not part of it, you'd be crazy.
So your message... Well, you and your closest, your 10 closest buddies, yes, you're the ones who know about it.
You tell yourselves, exactly.
So, option, create your own rallies, which may not be as big as this.
Yep.
And you may actually limit yourself to a certain part of the country because they're saying this is a national thing. the best thing is just join it. The same crowd they have access to, so do you.
So chart your course, my friend.
Yes.
In
But
this case.
what is significant, again, is this. What we have been debating here about the whole thing being politicized, that now has taken center stage.
Completely. It's creating the divisions that, that entire story of let's stop politicking and let's focus on development.
Gone with
Get
the
it
wind.
done.
Gone. Gone. And if it's true that the president is the one who called Musalia and Wetangula in Kakamega, and the president had also met with the governors of the coast to organize this particular one, then the president is basically also supporting this, what he was against. He was against politicking. And he can clearly see that what BBI is doing is bringing politics to the fore.
Then we must ask Eric what happened.
Why change of mark?
Yeah, because he was clear.
He was clear. I
From
want
the very
I
beginning.
want us
Very
to
clear.
focus on development.
And that we are not going to politicize this process.
Yes, and now we are politicking.
Or did he mean don't politic outside my timetable?
Let me ask the other question that perhaps we need to ask. Remember, he's not in any of these meetings, neither is the deputy president.
Yeah.
So these meetings are actually being spearheaded by
Raila.
Raila Odinga.
It seems that he's been given carte blanche to go ahead with all of this, really, and say, go ahead, carry on.
And whatever support he needs,
He's gotten it.
It's coming from,
Because
from
it's
State
clear
House.
that state machinery is at play here and
Yep.
it's being used. So, I mean, it's got the nod and, do what you need to do to get it done. And essentially, it's a total opposite from what we had heard in terms of
But if we leave the drama just for a second and ask ourselves, is it effective? Do you think it'll achieve the goals for which is intended? Of course, we're going to have to discuss what these goals are.
goals were.
What would the goals be?
Yes, exactly. Because crowds are never the way to judge these things, because crowds will go there, and political rallies are entertainment by and large.
Yeah.
And for all you know, you might hear something interesting.
But they send a message. I think what these political rallies do is they're able to send a message, and by the time a decision is made, you'll feel that you'd already been corralled towards that decision.
Actually, it isn't even what they say. The strength of rallies is the optics. You see these people.
Yeah.
Why do you think they are so mixed? You see somebody from this part of the world, you see the other one from this part of Kenya, the other part. It's sending you a message. So even when they speak and you're seeing, because you're actually seeing it embodied in the individuals you see on the podium, without telling you that, the other fellows are backing up the wrong tree. They're telling you.
they're telling you.
Yes. And without telling you that, look, this is the face of unity. This is what it looks like. They're telling you. It's an opportunity for the optics, and they are powerful, if you think about it. There are those who will argue and say someone like the media, reported at great length about the so-called trials and tribulations that the governor of Kirinyaga had and the things that the Right Honourable Raila had said about her.
Yeah.
Now, these two seem to be the best of buddies.
Oh, right. Yes, absolutely.
Working very much together.
Exactly. So when you see these things, a certain message is being sent. Commander has had things that were never really polite. He has said things which are not very polite about Raila Odinga.
Yeah.
But suddenly,
Bosom buddy brother.
there you go.
See, whenever you hear our politician, for example, he has my brother so and so, whatever position you had held on that subject, don't hold it. Discard it. Start anew.
Forget about it.
Just leave it. Just start anew. Because they have told you, the bell has been rung. We are charting a new course. And why am I saying this? I feel a lot of the people who are involved in such things, like right now, one, they have an advantage. Remember, we have an information gathering service in this country that tends to be very accurate about the information. And they probably will advise you and tell you, this is what people are thinking. Like they didn't come from Kisii, go to Buhungu, and then just go to Mombasa by accident. There's no accident there.
It's planned, of course.
It's choreographed. Even the next place they're going to. Remember, we had a guest in the show who said, I don't know what it'll be like in Wasingishu. And we posed the question, what have you told your people?
That it's going to be.
Yes, because that is what preempts the reception that this group will have.
Yep.
But given what happened in Mombasa, can you see that has been overtaken by events?
What will happen in Wasingishu?
More or less, because if your people were represented, and your people here is just one, Senator Murkomen.
No, there were actually a number.
I'm saying one because that is the number you need for representation. Someone prominent enough and someone who seems to represent you.
Yes.
You see him, he speaks. There's the odd senator here.
That's all you need.
Yes. Now, how then can there be any reception other than a good reception should they come to your neck of the woods?
Because in this case, you did not chase him away. You allowed him to speak. He even now welcomed you, if we're looking at that side.
Yeah.
With the kindest of words, with inclusivity, of course.
I think the
so there
battle
would be
lines
no
in-
reason to. There would be no reason not to reciprocate
The
when they were in your
battle
backyard.
lines when it comes to that part of the North Rift, Eldoret, will be who organizes, who's actually who's leading this meeting. If it's the Tanga side that's leading the meeting, then that's a different story. Now we are welcoming the MC is a Tanga person and is the one who's calling up the people to come and speak. That's a different story from if it's being organized by the same BBIA and then the Tanga people are being invited. They'll be feeling, well, you're inviting us in our own backyard? No way. We should be the ones who are leading it. I think that's where the issues are going to come in. Are you going to allow Kutunyi to be the one who organizes this meeting? Or are you going to let Murkomen and the governor of Uasin Gishu
right?
to be the ones who are organizing this meeting? Who is it going to be? I think that's where the issues will emerge. So let's see what comes out of Naivasha anyway.
Let's see what comes out of it.
They'll come out with an entire program. We'll see a lot of talk on what comes out of this.
And this talk isn't careless. It's also choreographed.
It's completely choreographed, right?
Yes. Because it all has to lead to a certain point.
What do you see that point?
Well, it's coming out in bits and pieces, but one can see the points emerging. They want to sell the idea of the structure that they want to present in 2022. And that, to me, is obvious. And even the clamor from the other side is that they also want to form their own line out, and they've been beaten. Yes.
Hands down.
Yes. And
Do you see Tanga saying, going against what the other side have said? For example, a powerful prime minister with 2 deputies?
No.
They'll go with the same.
Why would they want to go against it?
They'll go with the same.
For purpose of conversation, they may appear. Remember, opposition in this country often represents negotiation. It isn't a differing of even principles. No. It's negotiation. I feel that I should be part of this and I'm not. So I'm going to oppose that. I'm opposed. They'll be told, okay, Nani, stop. Come. That is it.
Yeah.
Yes. If it were on matters of principle, it would be a wonderful thing, but it rarely is actually.
This conversation always continues on our social media platforms, Spice FM KE on Facebook, Spice FM KE Twitter, and Spice FM KE on YouTube. We are live streaming on those 3 platforms, as well as www.spicefm.co.ke. In the next hour, we'll be discussing national ethos, and we'll be joined by the CEO of the Kenya Film Classification Board, Dr. Ezekiel Mutua. The man is called who? The moral police of the country. It's coming up to 7 o'clock. Good morning. This is The Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation.
Spice up your life. Spice FM, Nakuru. Traffic.
Okay, let's look at what Mombasa Road is serving up right now at the Cabanas interchange. The traffic is absolutely terrible and unbearable. With we definitely would have thought that the Taj Mall entry that has now been opened would have gotten better, but unfortunately that is not the case, and it's not being managed by police at all, unfortunately. So there's heavy traffic here, and there's light showers on certain parts of Mombasa Road as well. So it's not moving, interestingly enough, not moving at Cabanas at all, and this is affecting traffic all the way down Mombasa Road. Remember what we said around the Kabete area, the Red Hill, there's a wall that has fallen at the Red Hill bypass, so that's definitely affecting traffic everywhere you go in and outbound, and of course it's affecting traffic headed down Waiyaki Way, coming down into Westlands. So approach the area with caution, tafadhali, because we already have what is a terrible situation there. Langata Road, of course, building up because what we saw coming out of Rongai, all that spillover now to Langata Road is not helping either. So this is where we're having some trouble this morning. Thika Road also is moving very, very slowly, with traffic as far back as Safari Park Hotel. Let's see what it looks like in a short while. You find an alternate, please do let us know. Give us a shout on Spice FM KE on Twitter, or give us a call on 0719 012 600. Let's try and keep moving this Monday morning.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Thank you very much every morning for choosing this as the way to start your day. Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room, broadcasting on Spice FM 94.4 in Nairobi. We're in Mombasa 87.9, in Kisumu 102.5, Nakuru 96.0, 96.7 in Eldoret, 90.9 in Nyeri, 97.7 in Malindi. www.spicefm.co.ke worldwide, as well as Spice FM KE, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. We are live streaming there. Tag us on our individual Twitter handles at Nduoko, Nduokoh, at CT Muga, CTMUGA, at Eric Latif, at ERICLATIFF. Good morning. Now we're talking about the BBI and what the BBI report is saying. Can we do our own BBI rally this morning?
Oh, wow.
BBI. Tunataka. The BBI has talked about one of the things that it identified as ailing the country is one, a lack of trust in government, lack of trust in leadership, a lack of trust in church, but also a breakdown of national ethos and values. And it very much talks about we need to bring ourselves back to a place where we feel one as a country. We feel that we belong to a nation, not just people who are within borders of a certain country. We need to feel that we are a nation. So we have discussed this many times, even on this show. We've talked about, how people feel that we have a broken down values in our system. Why we have lost very many values. Why is it that we see so much corruption permeating itself in our society? Is it just corruption of taking? Is it an issue of greed? Is it a breakdown on values? And I think we have all said here that it's a breakdown on values. And then we've also talked about, so how is this being propagated? One of the ways in which it's propagated, we have also talked about it, is through what people consume, what we see on a daily basis, what we keep highlighting as the important stuff, as, what matters to a nation. If it's about having wealth, gathering wealth, being as wealthy as possible, and then we elevate those who have a lot of wealth, regardless of how they acquired it.
I think one of the critical factors in all of this is realizing that all of these things happen over time. There's nothing that happens as a snap of the finger kind of response to anything. So if there's a situation whereby there is distrust, it's not something that was done yesterday and then the people are now no longer trusting. If there was mismanagement or theft of money, it's not something that was stolen yesterday and then somebody's wealthy today. It's an action that was repeated over time. And to get to that place whereby you don't trust your leaders, you don't trust your religious leaders or organizations, you don't trust the system in the country, it's obviously a situation that has come about as a result of historical experience. And it's something that has happened repetitively over time. And that's why then somebody now bears what they bear currently. In order to remove something like that, of course, then takes as much work, even more work, than what was put in to get you to that place in the first instance. So for us to say that, there's a degradation of, what did you say? Degradation of morals.
And ethos and values.
Ethos and values. People don't believe a certain thing anymore. That means at some point they did. Or at some point there was a benchmark upon which they thrust this particular belief. So something that has happened that has eroded all of this. And I think if we deal with the symptoms, then we're not really helping ourselves. But what was the problem in the first place? And I think that is perhaps what should have been. Is really then what needs to be addressed, because upon that, and then the removal of such is then now where you introduce your cohesion once again. Is now when you're able to reintroduce your trust. Is when you're now able to reintroduce other things that will then help this country keep going.
You can sew together the fabrics again.
Absolutely.
Hey.
But until you deconstruct and go to the core of the matter, we're wasting our time.
Start understanding,
No
first of all, where
document, no
did the
political
rain start
rhetoric
beating us?
is going to help in any way.
Let's ask our paragon of knowledge and wisdom, CT. Where did the rain start beating us?
When you think this is a chronological thing, that by virtue of my advanced chronology, automatically I'll have a response.
You can go back and say,
It's difficult to tell when it started, because if you're talking about the value system, let's start with the understanding of family structures and the responsibilities that one should bear within a family. If you see what was called the traditional way of doing things and the changes therein, the rain actually doesn't start beating you then. These are just small showers of change that one anticipates and expects in any society. And this comes about, in our case, because of two things. One, you will talk of independence, you will talk about colonialism, you will talk about education. All these things play a part. And then you come to the stage where you get to how the citizenry began taking over the reins of power and the functions of government. So for the first time, the citizenry could identify with this thing called government, leadership, and we realize when you see your people there, as an Africans like you feel this is our government.
Yep.
Okay? Now, the fundamental interest that this particular beginning bears is this. Many people who took over, like in Kenya, one of the things that I think the leaders at independence felt, they needed to show the colonies that they could do this thing. They needed, that they weren't what they had imagined they were, that they needed to prove they could not just run the country, but even do better than them.
Yes.
And in many ways, they did precisely that. Things ran, and we took it for granted that the government would function normally, because the government did function. We could talk about rolling back the time. You had public health services. You had hospitals. All these things we talk about worked. People went to public schools. And why? Well, if you look at the fact that we were fewer in number, but the way the colonialists had built these schools, they had used the model of their own countries. Schools would be built with proximity to areas where people lived. In the same way you'd find a hospital. It was planned. It was part of a planning system.
Following population.
Yes, and a good plan to go with it. And these plans were not for 10, 20 years. No. 50, even up to 100.
Yeah.
That's why, for instance, when you look at our roads, this thing they call road reserves. It's not just for, it's not just for...
reserved a long time ago.
It's not just for water drainage or pipes or electricity or telephone lines. No. It's also meant for expanding the road. They figured if this population grows, there'll be more traffic. So you'll need to get... All this was part of a plan.
It was anticipated, right.
Yes. But the push was to become more like the white person. We wanted to ensure, and it was considered a mark of improvement. And that's why many parents took their children to, say, former white schools.
Yep.
Yes, and it was a great source of joy when your child came back home swallowing a lot of English. Okay?
English of the nose.
Yes. Yes. It was a sign of improvement, a sign of forward moving. Now, unfortunately, the language comes with its culture. And that's why even in modern times, it has stuck with us. Someone will probably tell you how the child has gone to study abroad. Well, which most Kenyans call in abroad. It's actually just abroad. There's no in about it.
Oversee.
Oversee. Yes.
One see.
Yes. And all things good. Look at our conversation. Huyu jamaa ni mzungu sana. They are telling you this someone, for instance, who keeps time. This someone who is orderly.
Yes.
There's someone who keeps his word. See, all these things. So that needs to be like Mzungu. In this country, became the drive. Now, unfortunately...
So we took the good and the bad.
That's what we did. And we thought even the bad was good because these things were new to us.
But what is the bad that we've taken from the Mzungu that now is eating us? For example, is that why we are still... Is the Mzungu corrupt? This
Of
way?
course he is.
This way?
Yes.
The way we are corrupt?
This corruption we have, they introduced it. We didn't have it.
But are they corrupt to this level? Or what did
Worse.
Did-
Worse.
They're just able to cover. They're just able to
What?
to
Yes.
take you off the mark with all these other shiny, glittery things that you wouldn't realize are the
But they
case.
don't eat. They don't eat up the entire country. I mean,
No,
yes,
no.
they have corruption.
No.
They
Actually, they did eat up the entire country.
Until-
they saw what it did, and they decided, we must give people something.
We need to give them something
They have
shiny
to have
and
something-
bright to look at.
Yes.
So
while
if
we
we were
continue-
So
borrowing,
they're comfortable.
if we were borrowing from them, we'd be borrowing from what we are currently seeing, not what we read about that they were doing in the past, in the 18th and 17th centuries.
But
We'd
you
be
know the
looking at,
thing is, they
this
didn't make-
is what they're doing now, and that's if we are
Yes.
borrowing currently our culture.
But you must understand that what they're very, very careful about what information they make known and what they make public. Do you see it in the news every single day that another corrupt politician has gone down or been arrested or been taken down? You don't see that.
People
They're
resign.
very people resign every day
and you
in the
negotiate
US,
it.
for
Okay,
example.
you will resign,
Which
and
is
then
why I'm
But
saying
they're very careful
if
about
we
the
were
information
borrowing-
that they let out there.
If,
Very, very
if we
careful.
were borrowing, we'd be borrowing from the information that we get, the information that we consume.
Eric, borrowing works like this. You borrow what suits you. To put it really very simply, it's not complicated. That may have served a purpose, but then there's something you call the novelty of wealth. Our wealth was in cows and land and wives and children. That was our wealth. Now, then brought in, we introduced the Western concept, and with it, the standardization. So you don't just want to be wealthy among your poor Africans. You want to be considered wealthy among your role model as well.
Yep.
Which means you have to steal the entire country, really.
That's how you equate your wealth in dollars.
Yeah, it has to be Kenya shilling wealthy,
Zodiacal.
Bond Street property kind of thing,
Yes, you want, when a conversation is had, you want to talk about your flat on Bond Street or whichever street.
Bond,
Okay.
this is the one.
Yes, or that's the conversation you want to have. So you start nicely. Why do you think that this preponderance of Kenyans who own helicopters? Because there are people who own helicopters abroad. It started off with leasing, now they own. I'm sure there are few even own yachts.
Yes.
Yes, no.
Some Kenyans.
Yes, and on this note, it's not a yacht.
Yacht.
It is a yacht. It's the English and their language. So, we've always equated things that were Western and English as being superior to ours.
Oh, yeah.
And we have then mixed our own way of doing things with theirs. What suits us? Our paragon of example will not marry many wives at a go. He'll just divorce and marry continuously. So it's a serial monogamy. Okay? But us, we just pile one on top of the other.
And say, let's just do it all at once instead
Yes.
of doing this.
And just in case
one after
people
the
think
other.
that this is against the law, we just change the law. Simple. Now, that's an example of how we mishmash what we want to do and what we emulate. Now, the unfortunate thing is they evolved and had legal structures that were actually strong and that were adhered to, and that became their tradition. Ours, it hasn't come our tradition. The tradition we have is one of propagating impunity. That's our tradition. That is the growth industry in this country. Remember that ministry I mentioned to you last week? The ministry that pervades everything. The Ministry of Impunity?
Yeah.
Yes. It's the ministry in this country that ensures the strengthening and the growing nature of impunity. And it pervades every sector. It pervades it is democratic. It does not spare anyone. It doesn't pick and choose. It is everywhere. And that's why we keep getting alarmed. Because even where you didn't think it would be. For instance, would anyone know, for instance, that even in church elections, the same way politicians spend money is the way people spend money in church elections?
In church elections.
Exactly the
To
same.
get elected to be the leader of the flock, you actually pay money to
You
the
need to
sheep.
pay money to the sheep.
You feed the sheep so that, they...
And the sheep follow you.
They choose
so
you
they
as
can
a
give
shepherd.
you your crook,
Of
Yes.
course.
essentially.
So if you ask the question, it isn't difficult to answer really, because the examples are clear and we can see. Even look at the way we dress. I mean, everything about us, we are emulating certain people, all right? Even the way we have our weddings, we still emulate.
So what I hear you say, CT, is that let's blame the West for
No,
what's
no,
ailing
no,
us.
no. This isn't a blame
Because I
game.
started by asking, where did the rain start beating us?
And I've
so we're
told
at a
you,
point
the
where
rain started beating
as
us.
a country,
No,
we've
it was
collectively
not.
agreed through the BBI that we've, have had moral decay. We've got loss of our values and national ethos. Where did the rain
But
start beating us?
the West didn't tell us to do the things we are doing. No, they impose certain things on us, yes.
So what caused us to get where we are?
Because we wanted to be the best of both worlds or the worst of both worlds. You want to look like a Westerner, you want to sound, you want to be respected because you felt that's how you'd be respected by them and considered as equals, which won't happen. It will likely not happen. An African being considered as an equal
to the
but our
white.
brothers in the West, even if you wake up very early in the morning,
Even till today, till tomorrow,
it's not going to happen.
it's not going to happen.
We need to look at them as their junior.
They will give you the impression that you're one and the same. You are never the same. You never are. No.
Back to your point.
My point is this. If we are going to apportion blame, I wasn't apportioning blame, I was merely describing a situation. The blame is with us. Because if we didn't have the information that we have now, you could say, they've kept the information. Everything that happens in the world we now see and we now know. So you cannot say you do not have other examples to follow.
Yeah.
You don't.
Right, exactly.
Yes. And the best example that one could think of is maybe the Nordic countries. They are a Western country, but 100 years ago, they're just as poor as us, suffering. But they decided they were going to change the way they did things. Everything about the way they function is different. Why? They've looked at the models that existed, absorbed some of it, and changed. When they started their free education system, when they started their free medical system, it's not that they had a lot of money. No. They worked with what they had, but they were committed to it. Our people decide that we have this gullible lot of idiotic Africans whom we can just keep telling lies all the time.
So let's lord our position over them, and
just
then now
keep it and keep. When they ask for something,
So the rain
give
did
them
not
words.
start beating us then. We've just been living in the pond. We probably have just been there. We can't just start saying, there's a point when we had, serious values, and there's a point when we had national ethos.
Eric, we still have values.
At what point did we have those national ethos?
If we didn't have values, this discussion wouldn't actually
Wouldn't
be.
Not to the same degree that, not where we'd like to be.
I'm trying to explain that you have to understand the change before what we're dealing with and where we came from to pinpoint and say, okay, this issue became an issue of serious discussion at this point.
at this point.
Yes.
This is when we saw that there was a shift, or this is now when we needed a further understanding of what was going on, because it became too much. It really, at some point, became too much until it now is something that is accepted, and that somebody would look at you as weird or as strange if you were asking the question as per what's going on here.
What's wrong?
And Eric, it only points to the way we do things. Something doesn't become a habit. It doesn't begin as a habit. It's a trait.
This
This is what I said.
It's constantly there.
It's repetitive action
It
over
becomes
and
habit,
over and over
and
again.
that habit then just becomes the norm.
The norm.
Now we are at the norm stage.
We are told you that we'll be joined this morning by a guest. So we are joined by a Moran. Good morning, Moran of the Burning Spear, Dr. Ezekiel Mutua, the CEO of the Kenya Film Classification Board. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Asante sana for joining us.
Thank you, Eric.
Of course, we are talking about national values and ethos and morals. And the first question that we are asking is, where did the rain start beating us? Do you think actually we've been beaten by the rain at any point? Or have we just been living in the pond?
Several stages. I think the breakdown of our moral values has been a cumulative process. But I think the greatest effect has been the content that we consume, particularly the youth. The young people who are impressionable, who pick everything from the media as the gospel truth, who watch musicians and artists on TV, and they think this is cool, and they want to be like Eric, they want to be like the stars that they see on TV, and then those guys misbehave, or the politicians that they admire, insult each other, and they think it's cool. We started this by having freedoms that are not moderated, where there's no balance between freedom and responsibility. I worked as a journalist at The Nation at a time when we knew right and wrong, and there was no blood line.
There was no grey.
No, there was no grey light.
Black and white.
It was black and white. We knew what to do, and there was no room for mistake. I was a school captain from the day I was in in primary school, secondary school, and I've grown in systems where it was black and white. You knew what to do. When the bell rings, you ran to class, and there was no argument with the teachers and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But increasingly, as we began to interact with the wider world through the media and exposure, we got the wrong exposure. That's why it's so critical for us to go back to the basics. Begin from the family, ensure that kids are taught the right manners as they grow up, from the churches as they go to Sunday school, from the mosques as they go to madrasas. These discussions about moral values needs to be at the corporate table. It needs to be at the pulpit. It needs to be everywhere. We've got to realize that we have a problem, and to arrest this problem, we've got to have a holistic approach to it. There are
two arguments. There are those who actually say that we don't have a problem, right? So that's one.
I don't think anybody thinks we have no problem.
And there are those who may think
I've not think we are fine.
Your view of
your
view of the problem is not their view of the problem. So if they sat down with you, then as far as they are concerned, if that's what the problem is, then we don't have a problem.
Essentially, they'll tell you that is your problem.
That is your problem.
Not
Probably
not everybody.
my approach to the solution or what I think is a problem.
Yes.
But we have a problem. Youths are complaining there are no jobs. Why don't we have jobs? Everybody's complaining the economy is bad. Right now, there are people in a matatu who are being treated to very obscene content, and they don't know what to do. They are held captives in that public transport vehicle. There's nothing they can do because the Makanga will not hear anything about it, and a policeman will be bribed, will not, take action. How can you say we have no problem when our youths are committing suicide and we have such a high level of crime and corruption and everything? I think we all agree there's a problem. What we need to discuss is how do we resolve? And I like the question you're asking. Where did the water start beating us? I think we need to trace the root cause and take action to resolve this issue. It's not, we cannot bury our heads under the sun and say, there's no problem, we are okay. We are not okay.
We're not. The BBI reporters has told us, they went around the country and they picked it out. The vibe from the country is, we have a problem. You keep, bringing it out and saying, the media and what we consume. Whereas I agree that the media is, propagating some of the ills that we have in the society. I don't think it's the only one to blame. I don't actually think it's the main culprit here. I think it starts further down at family level.
Absolutely. But Eric, unless you want to deny the power of the media, if we all believe that the media is powerful, that the media is a catalyst for shaping values, then we cannot remove the blame from the media. Either it has contributed consciously or unconsciously. But the thing is that since the liberalization of the media airwaves, from 1990s, early 90s, when KTN came into being, you used to have KBC. That time things were easy. It was easy to regulate the media that time.
It was easy to control what people are consuming.
Then we came to multipartism, where politicians started taking on the government, and we could hear people talking to the president in a manner that we were not used to. Everybody would shudder. But we started getting used to it. We started seeing Maandamano and Sabasaba, and the media got liberalized. The challenge was after what they used to call there was a parliamentary resolution that was enacted as law in terms of changing the way we approach politics.
IPPG?
IPPG. From the 1997-1998 IPPG resolutions, I think we went to the pendulum swung to the other extreme, and we allowed liberalization of the media without a tenant framework for regulation, so that now we started having gutter press. I remember that's the time yellow journalism came, yellow papers littered the street. That's where we could see almost more or less like the Ugandan red pepper. You'd find them anywhere in the streets, and the people's names would be tarnished. Family values would be, destroyed. You'd find people's reputations under scandal, and people started thriving in sleaze and scandals and so on, things that we were not used to. And Kenyans are very curious people, like Michael Joseph once said. We have very peculiar habits. And Kenyans left to their own devices, they can destroy themselves. We are that peculiar. So we went to the other extreme, and we thought it was fun insulting the president. We thought it was fun resisting the systems. So strikes started coming up in schools, riots, and so on and so forth. And we started taking these people who are championing these kind of causes as heroes. Now, there's a sense in which we didn't differentiate from the people agitating for political change, which was a good thing. and the manner in which they were doing it. Because insulting the president as a person does not help, does not change anything. Championing the cause of liberalization was a good thing, but we picked the wrong habits and the wrong traits from these politicians, went to the other extreme. And the media was now taking it, and the media that became popular, actually, that's how KBC started losing out in the matrix of popularity, because the media that was not showing the saba people fighting, throwing stones, and police confronting,
showing the reality on the ground.
These are the things that shape values. And our young people think it's heroism when they see these kind of things.
Who's to say that the opposite then is true? Who's to say that it's not heroism for them? Who is to say that what we see that we would call wrong values in this case, if we're looking now at morals, is not the case? And if that person existed, at what point then should they have come in to say, look, folks, we're going in the wrong direction? Because we've talked about the fact that what people hold as a belief is not something that they got as a snap of the fingers yesterday. It has been over time, it has been repetitive in nature, and then that's what they now hold on to as a belief or a value. Or if we say that morals flew out the window, it is over time. So then that means, to me, I see then, was there then a failure at some point by someone? And if that's who, then is that someone? It's in the absence of Ezekiel Mutua.
It's a society
as a watchdog.
Ezekiel Mutua came late in the day.
Exactly. So
I actually came in strategically at the level of digital migration, because I thought we were expanding the media space and the spectrum, more players coming in. And I championed the process of digital migration when I was Secretary of Information. So immediately after 2015, when we moved from analog to digital, I got an opportunity to serve as the CEO of KFCB. And when I joined, I looked at the law, the Films and Stage Plays Act, and the critical role of regulation in creating the balance. And this is now where I answer your question, who is to do it? I think the failure has been the lack of balance. I think in life, you need moderation. If you do anything to the extreme, it becomes poisonous. And so what happened is we imbibed these freedoms and went to the extreme, thinking it's fun. We picked new cultures that came with the new media, picked them as way of life, promoted them without responsibility. And the balance between freedom and responsibility is what has created this problem. So that discipline became something that is not treasured, that is not praised. And we got into a culture where
it became negative. It was presented as something negative.
Exactly. That if you're okay, look at what the media, how even the media conditions newsmakers. And I've been a newsmaker for almost 20 years, since I ran for Secretary General of Kenya Union of Journalists in 2001. I have seen us being conditioned that if you are genuine and you are modest and you just go to a press conference and just stick to the point, and you don't dramatize insult, you don't get coverage.
Even if you do get coverage,
it will be at the back burner. You know, I have seen my stories near the obituaries when I thought I said very important things.
Dead is innocent.
And then you see another guy who insulted another one publicly, who did shameful things. That's a guy who's given the front page.
Yep.
That's a guy who's given the first item on TV and on radio. So we started conditioning newsmakers that if you don't say bizarre things, controversial, if you don't insult the president or other people, you are not popular. Popularity and heroism is when you say crazy things.
That is the
when
nature
you bang
of
the
news.
table.
But that's the nature of news. We're all trained and taught to understand. You know this very well. You're taught to understand.
When you were practicing
we were taught
who
that
were you giving
when a dog
prominence?
bites a man, it's not news.
Yes.
But when a man bites a dog, it's
That's where the news
but
is.
that's the wrong narrative. There must be a balance. Let me tell you, Eric, there's no freedom without responsibility.
It depends on the circumstances surrounding the biting of the man.
This is a challenge that we have. Let me tell you. During Moi's days and before, I don't know how long we have this system in education where people, before you join university, you used to go to the NYS, the National Youth Service. And this is a recommendation I'm giving. For us to restore our moral values, we got to get... There are two approaches to it. One must be the magic bullet theory, the magic bullet action. There must be a drastic action. And I pray to God that it will not have to go the way of Rwanda for us to get to our senses and realize that this is not an argument that we need to embrace as a way of life. We don't have to go to a genocide. We are heading there. We are right on the cliff. It's not a joke. We don't have to get there, but we could get there. Could be one of the things that will shake us and jar us into action. The other one would be for policymakers to get our youth, who are the future of our country, to go to NYS, to ensure that our youth go to the join the Scout movement and Girl Guide, and join the NYS, and that jobs in public service in particular, even in the private sector, will be predicated on your history and the positions that you held and how you have proven yourself in your school life as a responsible individual.
Let's come back and discuss that. That's one of the proposals that you have. We'll look at them, and also what other proposals we have on what is it that we need to ensure that we bring the country back, like the president said on Jamhuri Day, the river back to its course. 28 minutes to 8 o'clock. This is the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. On the hot seat this morning is Dr. Ezekiel Mutua, the CEO of the Kenya Film Classification Board.
87.9 Spice FM, Mombasa. Traffic.
All right, round about 7:30 this morning, let's see what's happening on the roads. In Westlands, unfortunately, around Waiyaki Way, on Red Hill Road specifically, we know that part of that wall has actually fallen, or rather collapsed, and this is affecting traffic in that area. So you're asked to approach with caution, and it's affecting traffic then in and outbound. So it's a total mess this morning on Waiyaki Way, and of course coming far beyond from the 87 where the construction is happening. So unfortunately, it's epic, nightmarish proportions of traffic there today. So there we're just going to have to be patient. The current situation on Mombasa Road toward the CBD is slow, but it's moving now. On Thika Road, of course, approaching the CBD, coming through the Globe Cinema roundabout is not too bad, but moving very, very slowly. Mombasa Road, yes, bumper to bumper, all the way from Cabanas, where we had no movement earlier. It's moving a little bit slowly now. You'll get where you're going just in good time. Of course, right now, we see that you can use the eastern and southern bypasses. Jogger Road is very slow this morning as you approach City Stadium roundabouts, but you get into the CBD just in time. Give us a shout on Twitter at SpiceFMKE, or give us a call on 0719 012 600. We keep moving this Manic Monday.
Online, mobile, and on radio. www.spiceradio.co.ke. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Broadcasting in Nairobi on 94.4. We're in Mombasa at 7.9. Kisumu 102.5, 96.0 in Nakuru, 96.7 Eldoret, 90.9 Nyeri, 97.7 in Malindi. We're also live streaming, as we always do, on Spice FM KE, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, as well as www.spicefm.co.ke. In the Situation Room this morning, my name is Eric Latif. We have CT Muga Nduoko. And on the hot seat, we're joined by Dr. Ezekiel Mutua, the CEO of the Kenya Film Classification Board. We're talking about national ethos and values. And before we get to the magic bullet solution that you're proposing, Dr. Mutua, let's also look back at how this moral decay is presenting itself in our society. What is it that what are those avenues or those things that we see that signify that we have lost it? Not our marbles, but lost our values.
Oh, part
Maybe
of it
some,
as
maybe
well.
some of the marbles, I'm telling you.
Even our marbles are gone.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Like I said, it's through the media. I think the eyes of the world are through the media. We interact through the media. We embrace one another. We like and hate people based on what we see on the media, what we read, and what we know about them. For me, and probably the obsession is because of where I sit.
I think
and,
so, because
my
I'm thinking,
career has just been in this. And,
as you're coming back to the media, I keep taking you back to that basic family unit.
Isn't
Yes,
the
yes,
media
yes,
isn't
but-
the media a reflection of society? Doesn't
But
the
let-
media give off then what people
The media,
show?
the media,
Not necessarily.
and this is a deep conversation because, and I speak as an expert. I mean, this is my area. This is what I've done. I've been on all the sides of the divide as a practitioner, as a trade unionist,
And now as a regulator.
as a policymaker, as a regulator. So I have looked at it from different sides, and also as a researcher. I mean, this is my master's and my PhD. In communication studies, and there's a sense in which looking at the power of the media, not just in Kenya but globally. Even when you look at the scenarios that are panned out in what caused the genocide in Rwanda, you find the media in it. If you look at what is happening in China right now and how China has rebuilt its economy to a superpower, lifting themselves out of poverty and growing to where they are, see the role of the media. The other most powerful one is the governance paradigm and how people chose to be governed and how those ethos of and values are ingrained in the system. That requires, in our situation, a benevolent dictator. That's what is happening in Rwanda with tremendous respect to the
streamline
regime
things.
of President Paul Kagame. But everybody's looking towards Rwanda. No magic. What President Paul Kagame has done is just to ensure that the country has values and there is no room for discussion. If you're driving in the streets of Kigali and you knock a tree as a motorist, the fine is worse than what we do here when you knock a human being. Okay? You're jailed. I think the fines are, I think, almost 20 years.
So there you go. You see, you're talking
And
about
what they do-
You're talking about a leader.
Yes.
You're talking about a society. You're talking about a leadership, and the media is a tool. The media is not the one that is leading this conversation. The media cannot be the one that is leading the moral decay.
No, I agree
It's
with
just
you.
a
And
tool
we
that's
are not
being
at
used by
war. We are not
something
at war.
else.
We spend a lot of time. It looks like us versus them. First of all, I am pointing at the media because I regulate the media. So
This is
I
what
think
you know.
my specialty for coming here can only be to offer,
You're also a member of the society.
and to look at it in
Dr.
terms
Mutua.
of
You've said
how-
you've also played in policy.
I said I believe in the power of the media. I believe that journalists, a responsible journalist with a pen and a camera and a notebook can change the world. It has happened elsewhere. It can happen in our country. I've talked about governance and having leaders who are firm in values and setting the systems that are not negotiable. If you're going wrong, you know it's white, it's black and white. And I think for us, we need to interrogate this situation, like you said, from all circles, including the family, the breakdown of the family values. But let me tell you, even when I was growing up, in fact, it was worse in our time because you find a parent working in Malindi or Mombasa who comes home, maybe the father in
Once
the
a
house.
quarter.
Once a quarter a year or half a year, and we were still fine. Some of the families and no role models, and we still grew up well because children belonged to the community,
Yes.
and everybody looks to take care of everybody.
Yeah.
The situation has changed. That's why I'm saying right now the media has remained as the champion of our values and the custodian of these values, and therefore, if we are going to change the narrative, I think the media has got to agree that it has a great role because our kids watch and our kids imitate. They say mangi see, mangi do, and our kids are a product of the kind of content that they consume. The next one is, of course, our school system, the pedagogy that we give to our children, and how that curriculum and the schooling system is supposed to affect our kids to grow to become responsible human beings. That's why I'm recommending the drastic measures of having the National Youth Service as mandatory course for anybody going through the school system.
In all this, where do you see the role of the parents?
Obviously,
And the
that's where
church.
it begins. You start, that's where the values begin. Values begin at the family level. But I've
See why I asked the question.
like I've said, you
Yes.
see before city,
Yes.
but the parent word was what shaped the values. But now
law.
you leave your kids with the TV, with the radio, they're exposed to so much. Not like in the days of yore, where it was society and it was responsibility and there were people watching. Right now, parents are busy. You wake up very early in the morning. Courtesy of this show, I am to leave before seeing my children. You guys, I don't know whether you have children and how
we
you
do-
manage your
we do
families.
it every
So the
day,
moment,
Monday to Friday.
what do you do?
Every day,
We
Monday
live
to Friday,
without seeing
You
our
are
children.
here.
children in the morning. Yes.
Very early in the morning.
Yes, before
That
they
is
wake
the
up.
typical parent in Kenya today. And you cannot blame the parent because they're aching a living. They're trying to provide for the family. Times are hard. And so let us say we need to have an all-round approach to this issue. So the parents have a duty to play, but they're not as available as they used to be. And there's exposure. Children are left to other devices that inform or inform their values and shape the way they
Dr.
kind of
Mutua,
become.
with urbanization, even long before the media at this center stage that we are now discussing, people held their rural homes as a place of with great reverence. So it was even known that during school holidays, children would go home. So these values we speak of would be further entrenched because in the rural areas,
Yes.
they had not been dissipated.
Yes.
Now, if you go back to a time like that, that's why I brought in the issue of parents, where now parents would ensure parents who both come from a similar community and speak the same language do not, for instance, further the language of their community, which is part and parcel
Yes.
of a heritage and a tradition, and they further this language that we are now speaking,
Yes.
and with it comes the norms that you are.
Absolutely.
Because if you disregard that which was fundamental to an older generation,
Yes.
then it means you have abrogated it and taken up a completely new one.
Yes.
And so this decay we are speaking of is not very difficult then to understand.
Absolutely. And I agree with you, CT. I mean, so that's a point that we don't need to add anything. It's safe to say that even as in our role as a regulator, we always say we cannot come and regulate in your bedroom. I mean, a parent has got to tell the kid, this program is not suitable for you.
Yep.
Switch off the TV, do your homework, go out and play. That parental role cannot be abrogated.
Sure.
We've got to play our role.
All right.
The religious institutions have got to play their role. So that's why I said it's a agency approach to resolving this issue. And I'm so happy that it has been captured by the BBI report that we have a challenge, that we seem to celebrate the wrong people and demonize the good people. And you see, if you want to see a society that is rotten, it's a society that canonizes thieves and demonizes good people, so that good people in society are not celebrated, they're not seen as heroes, but our kids are given other models and other sort of definition of success that is based on shortcuts and theft and corruption.
To add to what you say, I have a different take on it. And this is partly because, you see, you spoke from your background, and I agree with you completely. Now, I am a teacher. I began my career as an educator. I now do different things, but that's a place I worked in for the longest time.
And it's shaped the way you think as well.
It shaped the way I think, but it also made me understand the role of education in the lives of students. And I started by saying that odds set in when the government of Kenya decided that education was the course they gave to people who could not qualify for what they wanted.
So when you
Meaning,
can't teach.
yes, if you're going to university and you want to be an engineer and you can't make it, education. If you wanted to be a doctor and you can't make it, education. Now, why am I saying this? I saw this because an earlier generation had been taught by people who wanted to teach, and education and educators were held in very high regard in society.
Absolutely.
They were role models.
And you see, that's a challenge we have now, City. Because today, you see a socialite parading themselves, and you give them a lot of time here.
Yes.
A professor from the university or a guy with an innovation.
First of all, they're paid poorly. They're paid very poorly. And then, that respect that I speak of has now been passed on to the university.
Absolutely. But life is not just about pay. I mean, I don't think
There's a reason why I'm going with
was
the pay.
paid so well.
The reason I'm mentioning this. In modern times, pay is commensurate with respect, but that's not what I wanted to pay.
And
What I wanted to
lifestyle,
say
and
was,
your
what I
lifestyle
wanted to say
also.
was, if you have an entire generation of people who are doing a job like teaching, which for many was a vocation, and it is not their first love, the antipathy and the disregard which is in their mind as having been denied what they wanted is passed on in their teaching.
There's a very powerful quote that I'm told is in a university in South Africa, a signpost that says, to destroy a nation, destroy the quality of education.
Yes.
Dilute it, let kids learn that cheating is no more.
Yes.
And then you produce, they're saying, the architect that come out of that, they will build houses that will collapse and kill
Yes.
people, doctors that will prescribe the wrong medicine,
Yes.
and so on and so forth. So I agree, the role of education, and I mentioned it, it's very critical.
And you see, teachers actually spend more time with the children than the parents.
Yes.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Why don't we have films that show a teacher as a hero? Why don't we have content that respect university
Why
professors
don't we have a
and
government?
innovators?
Why don't we have a government
That respects the
that
teachers.
respects
its
teachers
people.
and pays them the salaries they're paying MPs?
CT, Thomas Jefferson, the fifth president of the third president of the United States of America, said he was given to choose between a government without the media and a media without the government. He would not hesitate to choose the latter. I think we're in a situation where you are denying the power of the media, and yet you want to be praised and given freedom. We have to agree that the media is powerful. The media shapes values.
powerful.
The media sets the agenda.
It does.
And if the media plays its role well, for example, if you said we are not going to give coverage to a warmonger, even in this BBI narrative and conversation, say if you're not going there to articulate your points, educate your people
We're not
without,
covering you.
without partisan and drawing in
Sentiments,
emotions, you're not going to get coverage on KTN, on Spice FM. Do you know they will shape up?
Another
That's how
conversation
simple
will
it
emerge
is.
there, Dr. Mutua. You know, in
Remove
terms
the
of
cameras from warmongers and
you're
from
gagging
thieves.
people. I
In
mean,
terms
it-
of freedoms now, because
in
I
whose
think it
opinion?
would
No,
be-
that's not freedom.
Well, I think it would be interesting.
responsibility.
It would
Let's
be
take
necessary
a
to
short
have the
break.
conversation and reconciling then between some of these freedoms we talk about and then also some of the responsibility, because those two definitely there's a place where they cross.
It's 13 minutes to 8 o'clock. Good morning. This is the Situation Room.
Spice FM. Spice up your life. 96.1 Spice FM. Kisi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Dr. Ezekiel Mutua is in the hot seat this morning in the Situation Room. Right here, he's talking about, values and all, and he's basically sticking the line. The media has a role to play in this, central and pivotal role to play in bringing the country back to high morals and, acceptable norms of morality. Now, of course, you also had started giving us what you'd considered your magic bullet. Say that all the youth are taken to the National Youth Service
Yes.
and indoctrinated.
Not indoctrinated.
That's what happens.
I think we need a platform
That's what would happen.
which removes us. Magic bullet.
Yeah.
Magic bullet is basically that. I mean, see what President Kagame does in Rwanda.
Yep.
There's a day they sweep the streets. Even the president is there leading the way.
Yep.
I'm trying to say,
In fact,
that
Dr. Mutua, they had on the whole month of April, no partying, no nothing. You just go to work, go home. A whole month.
magic bullet, where we know this is law, you got to do it. We've seen it in our country when the president said we are going to fight corruption, and even interdicted finance and procurement officers in the government. I can tell you that bang sort of walk people to the reality that is not business as usual. And I think we need to get somewhere. And I said, do not allow this country to go the way of Rwanda for us to realize even we in the media exist when there is peace in this country.
Yep.
So don't give microphones and cameras and airtime to warmongers and to people of nothing, no morality, no values. People are insulting. I mean, I saw a member of parliament. I can't call him even a mweshimiwa, insulting another one. You heard the story. I can't repeat the words that they said. that we are going to shave everywhere that can be shaved. Sorry to say it on air. And you give that guy coverage, and then you make him look like a hero, and you celebrate those kind of people. That is where you remove the microphone, and that guy realizes, oh, so when I insult another leader in a public podium, I am not building my name. I'm not endearing myself to my constituency. But the moment when I say those unpalatable things, to look like that's when I get coverage, and the other guy who is okay and decent and just promotes peace and speaks about development and values does not get coverage, you are setting the newsmakers up to
then you have
embracing this unpalatable kind of behavior.
in that particular example that you've given, that was actually being broadcast on social media by social media platforms. Mainstream media steered clear of that particular incident.
I tend to think it's because we condemned it. We called it out right there.
Yes,
I
but you
think
the
instantly.
you got the information through social media. You were not at that
Absolutely,
rally.
and that's why I said
He put-
digital migration has brought in a different paradigm in terms of the way we consume the media.
So
Our
how
kids
do
are
we,
on
how do
social
we
media.
regulate now that in
You
social
know,
media?
I have a 21 and 13-year-olds, and they don't watch local TV.
Because of
Okay.
what you have done.
Not quite. I mean, we
What-
we,
well,
we,
explain
sit-
to us the
we sit
circumstances.
Why?
we sit at the we sit together at the sitting room to watch news. The first item is a rape. The second item is some politician who insulted another. The third one is murder. And we are like, we don't want to go to bed depressed.
Depressed.
So this is horror. So we decided news is horror.
So you switch to international news where you find somebody has shot
Sometimes
kids
we
in a
do,
church.
sometimes-
Church
but,
or a
but,
school.
but if you are a serious parent,
Yeah.
you do not want to expose your children to the local TV.
Okay, so I hear you saying now, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong. What I hear you saying is that we've already established the fact that in the day and age in which we live in today, parents have in one way or another abrogated the responsibility of watching over their children to media because they have to work or whatnot, because they have to be away at early hours of the day till late hours in the night. So what I'm hearing you say in essence is that because they're left to the vices of that we see on media, what you're saying is that should be regulated to the point whereby whatever that they are receiving needs to be whole, moral, etc. Is that what we're saying?
I
to
am
the
saying-
point whereby if we are forced to leave children, young people, because we're saying it's at that level, it's at
Yes.
that level of education, it's at that level where they're being socialized. If they have to be left to those vices, it needs to be regulated to the point that what they're ingesting, what they're seeing, hearing, has to be of sound moral
Yes,
content
completely
value.
contained in a bubble.
Absolutely.
Is it possible to operate?
Can I
like
add a but
that?
here? Can I add a
No,
but
the point
here?
I wanted to make is there is need for a national conversation on the role of the media in this BBI report on ethos and values. Okay, national conversation, which is about how do we self-regulate, how do we make the media more responsible. Number two, we are also saying that the absent parent today, the one who is waking up very early and coming late, tired, and so on, does not have as much time for their children as we used to be.
Or
And the
choice.
children are more exposed to the media, whether it's the vehicle that is picking them from home to take them to school, they are on Spice FM or Classic 105. And they're listening. The driver likes that. And they're treated to adult content against the watershed principles. And we are saying, how about if we said, we just have a conversation like this, it's watershed period. We do not have to say or to discuss adult stuff
Right.
that would expose our children wrongly. But what we hear, some radio stations play pornography on the airwaves in the morning. And that bus that is taking kids to school,
Has a
or the
radio.
parent taking kids to their school, they are on that radio and kids are exposed to that. I'm just saying there's need for a conversation
But there are two
that will
things
make
also.
the media realize that there's multiplicity of channels, whether you're talking about social media.
I think you should start
or
from the audience,
mainstream.
Dr. Mutua, because the audience is the one that's making this choice. If I start a radio,
Children have no choice. One of the basic,
The
one of the
adults-
core mandates of
Switch off
Kenya
the
Film.
radio.
the
or-
adults,
Yeah.
are making the choice to actually listen to this.
And I agree-
Some of these adults have their own children in the vehicles. Some of the adults are choosing. These are the matatu drivers or whatever. They are adults.
Let me tell you,
But
Eric,
why are
no
you forgetting-
parent wants
if
their
they
children to watch
choose-
pornography.
If they choose
Eric
all
and
these
Dr.
things.
Mutua, why are you forgetting that in children listening to this content, you have an opportunity to actually discuss these things with them, not for them to listen all the time because they will hear it. The opportunity is there for
Yes.
you to discuss it. One. Number two, these parents being busy, it is actually not entirely true. Parents have always been busy. It is more the position and the priority that children have in the parents' lives. Modern parents want to live their lives. So they want to push their children into either a boarding setup or some maid who looks after them. Everybody has 24 hours, and it's a decision you make to give your children time and for them to be a priority. Even those of us who wake up at this hour, we have to make a choice as the time when you know I have to make this time to be with these children. It's
And
a choice.
City, the fact is, this conversation is about the balance in the exigencies of life today,
Yes.
as opposed to the multiplicity of exposure of content that children are exposed to
Or the parents,
compared,
even the parents exposed
no,
this
compared
exposure.
to the time in the past.
No, that
yeah.
wasn't
I mean, it's an important
was a
point here.
different time, yes.
That times are changing, and we have liberalized the media. We are in digital
And there's a
space.
lot competing for our interest.
Yes,
There's globalization, there's technological
parents to blame.
advancements.
If you're going to give your children an iPhone, it is your duty to ensure that they understand that it can be a double-edged sword.
Yes.
And I think that's the role that KFCB is playing, to create awareness more than just coming to block or to ban. We are now embarked on a sensitization program. We are now sponsoring the Kenya National Drama and Film Festival to get those kids who are acting to know that you can be responsible. And the theme that we are using, and we used last year, is promoting moral responsibility. We saw this 2 years ago before the BBI. We came up with a theme in collaboration with Ministry of Education under the National Drama and Film Festival, with the theme promoting moral responsibility in society through drama and film. And that's a huge program from ECD to university that we are working with the Ministry of Education to ensure that from the primary school, we can have themes that reflect the issues, in society, but with a moral, with a story, with a message, so that our songs, our poems, our acting, our films, there's a message, and that message promotes moral values.
Yep.
That message promotes hard work, positive social values like honesty, like hard work, like teamwork, like perseverance, and so on. And we believe that
Do you see it working?
That's a long time. We started on last year.
Right.
I said there are two ways. There's either magic bullet or cumulative effect,
cumulative one.
where maybe in 20 years the society will be different. But in the magic bullet, it can either be a tragedy that would also take us down the cliff like in Rwanda, God forbid, or it could be
Decisive
a
action that we
drastic
take.
action, like I say, take every kid to NYS.
Do we need a
Make it a policy.
Where we've reached now, because we said the rain is beating us, so we're wet. I mean, it's short of finding a place to hang out and dry. Something needs to be done right now to stop the rain, or at least get away from under it. So don't we need a drastic action now with some of the things that we see? I mean, we've heard you be extremely vocal about some of the music that has come out, some of the films that have come out that have been banned in Kenya. I mean, and that's just, probably the tip of the iceberg in terms of what needs to be done. Do we need drastic action now, or is it something that then, do we need a reconditioning of minds?
Yes.
Over time, because obviously reconditioning is not something that you will do instantly. It takes time.
Exactly, and that's why I talked about the cumulative effect, the
Right.
grantio, sensitization.
Do we need a magic bullet now, or do we need something over time to change?
We need a
because
combination
obviously
of both.
this contamination.
So we need both.
The
We need
contamination
at the same time.
The
Yeah.
contamination
Why
took
wait for
time.
NYS at that later stage? Why not start earlier? Why?
You see, like I've told you, in the Kenya National Drama and Film Festival,
That's a cumulative one.
we are starting from
in our
ECD,
magic
it's
bullet.
cumulative.
Why not start? So
In
we'll
the
start with
magic
the
bullet,
children,
I think with the BBI.
But you and I, Dr. Mutua, as parents, we also need to be shot by this bullet.
I think
because
so.
yes,
I
we-
agree.
So we take our kids to NYS, but
Yes.
then they come home and they still find us,
Exactly where we were.
Exactly.
No.
where we were.
Let's
They're still
start
gonna
with the
corrupt
parent.
them.
I think
Or they go to NYS for a short period of time, and then they say, okay, it's just for a short period
And
of
then
time.
they
I'm
come
going to be
out.
able to get back to my life as
No,
I
no,
was
no.
before.
It was not like that. I think if we bring that as a system of bringing up our children, and it will have effect in terms of the way they get their jobs, that if there are two jobs that we are competing for, and one person has gone through NYS or has been a member of the Scouts movement, the other one has not, the guy who has been with the Scouts or has gone to NYS gets the job. So there's a reward and punishment system, sort of, if you want to call it so. A magic bullet would work that way. That parents need also to play their role. Religious institutions need to play their role. But I think out of this BBI, we can propose something that is going to be drastic, but another one that is going to be long-term.
Let's look at those drastic and long-term measures shortly for the next 10 minutes. We're coming up to the top of the hour. It's coming to 8 o'clock in the Situation Room. This is Kenya's biggest conversation in the room this morning. We have Dr. Ezekiel Mutua, the CEO of the Kenya Film Classification Board. We are talking about national ethos, morals and values, and what we need to cure the country. Good morning. Let's take a look at what's happening on the roads, and then the conversation continues. It's 8 o'clock.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. 102.5 Spice FM. Kisumu. Traffic.
Right, so some showers experienced in the middle of the CBD, and we have traffic on Kenyatta Avenue today that is a total mess all the way from Valley Road down to the GPO roundabout, not moving at all. Of course, we understand that all roads converge in the CBD depending on where you're going, so approach knowing that you're not going to get in as easy as you might think. We still have that situation on Red Hill Road that is affecting traffic in and outbound on Wayaki Way, with the collapse of that wall. Coming off Cabanas on Mombasa Road, and here we are all the way far back as Syokimau, with the traffic quite terrible this morning and not moving as quickly as we'd like it to. Thika Road also serving up those vibes this morning. It's not moving. It is Monday. Everybody's out and we have more vehicles on the street today. So this is affecting how we're able to move, guys. Just going to ask that you be patient. If you're trying to join Langata Road, it's not going to be easy either. We'll let you know that the southern and eastern bypasses are options that you can use today, and they're not experiencing bumper-to-bumper situations. Spice FM KE is how you can reach us on Twitter, or call us 0719 012 600.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your
It's
day.
also Kenya's biggest conversation. Thank you very much for tuning in. We are live streaming the show on www.spicefm.co.ke. We're also on Facebook, Spice FM KE, Twitter at Spice FM KE, and as well as YouTube, Spice FM KE. So some comments and questions also coming in on the social media platforms, and we're going to be looking at them shortly. We have one here. It says, Dr. Mutue is very good at attacking those that he has power over, but he can barely muster a coherent argument against the corrupt and incompetent government that he serves in that is daily eroding the moral fiber of this nation.
I do not. I'm not the head of ESCC. I mean,
No?
people confuse things. See, people tell me why you're not attacking the, people are stealing. My role is to regulate the media.
But you can call them out.
I do, but that's not my core mandate. I'm governed by law. The law that I enforce is called Films and Stage Plays Act. It regulates the media. So this is my domain. So I'm vocal in my domain.
So you stick to your lane.
I stick to my lane. So if it's about promoting films or developing films that speak about these issues, yes, I do promote that. But it's not my duty to arrest people who are corrupt or people who are stealing. I mean, people need to understand. I need to get this conversation. I'm giving Due a summarized version of this report because she's very good at reading. I wish, and this is a very important topic, Latif.
Well,
Guys,
I mean,
you couldn't choose a better topic at a time like this, and I wish we could have that summarized version because it speaks about the short term and the long term, speaks about embracing our culture, talks about rebuilding our national institutions that speak about our culture, including the National Archives, the National Museum, and starting to retrace our history. Like I said, that's a summarized version of the BBI.
So what's the leakage?
But in
The
long
summarized
term,
version of the
the
BBI.
BBI.
Okay, well, look, based on what you've talked about on your mandate as regulating the media,
Yes.
if we look at the shortened form, I mean, one, write the official history of Kenya as a nation, begin to think big and long term. Our vision of this country must go beyond our lives and into the generations ahead. Be confident in our African skin, and must strengthen our African identity.
Yes.
Promote ethics in the country.
Yes.
Yeah, so
There's
those
something
those are
about
the
culture.
four.
There's a
Right, then
there's a
under
important one.
culture, teaching ethics as a compulsory subject, removing the ethics mandate, including teachings of the national values and principles. And then, of course, under culture, they're revamping the Kenya National Archives and Documentation, strengthening the Ministry of Culture and Heritage. Now, through that, how then does this come through in making sure then the media is regulated to make sure that people see or don't see or hear or not hear what they should be hearing?
And first of all, let's not take the regulation of the media to mean by government. I'm talking about self-regulation and promoting professionalism and responsibility, and the media appreciating the power it wields in shaping values for better or worse. So that when we see songs like Wamlambez becoming a national anthem, I ask myself, what is the message? What is so catchy? What is so important about shouting Wamlabe, Wamunyonye, and you want to make it a national anthem? How is that important?
It's a generational thing.
It takes a
Dr.
very
Mutua.
lazy,
No,
idiotic
no.
mind.
It's a generational thing, Dr.
What
Mutua.
generational? Let
You
me ask
guys,
Let me ask
guys who are half a century and above.
You
No,
don't-
no, no.
will
you
not
wouldn't
get it.
understand.
So Eric, you are modern. Let's assume
The
you are modern.
35s and below
Let
will get it.
let me give you the benefit of the doubt. Assume
Yes.
that you are modern. It's the greatest favor I can ever give you to assume that you can even be modern. But let me ask you. So how cool is it to say Wamlambe? How does it make you a hero?
I
How
don't-
does it make you feel?
I don't get it, Dr. Mutua.
You don't get it
I
like
am
me.
not in that age bracket.
Thank you.
Those in that age bracket get it.
And this is the
if you
point.
ask them, when you ask them, what do they tell you?
This is the point.
I can tell you one of the things they tell you, Dr. Mutua, and it's very clear. They said, look, as opposed to, it's expressing what people are thinking anyway, but here is a platform upon which they can express
And we
it.
want to take that creativity, nurture it in a way that it contributes positively to society by saying that we don't glorify even songs like that and content that does not have value or that promotes obscenity. Let me tell you, I spent about 2 weeks in my constituency. In 2000, Mwala, I come from Machakos County. My sub-county is called Mwala. And in 2017, we did a survey.
Is it where
on-
that inspector on TV comes from?
Yes, no. Yeah, but it's named after my place. But this is a point. This is a point city. We did a survey in 2017 about the effects of vulgar vernacular music on the youth in 2017. My community, the Kamba community, came top. They in such obscene music, you can't believe it.
Really?
That even the stage names of the bands were so obscene. There was a band called Katombi. There was another called Maima. And if you look at that, they were sexual in nature. And this music was playing everywhere. And we called it out and said, this is dangerous.
Many
Do you know
could
what?
argue-
Do you know what has happened? Let me give you the effect. I'm summarizing.
Right.
As I spent time in Ukambani, we were getting results, and these were published even by the national media. About 600 students in a very small area in Makueni were pregnant when they were sitting for the exams last year. In the place where I come from, for the first time, I heard from the assistant deputy commissioner of police who comes from that area saying that there was a case of sodomy. An old man was sodomized. It's something we never used to hear about. When we raised these things, people reacted the way you're saying, oh, it's cool. This is our times. Times have changed. Now we are hearing such stuff in the rural areas. It's our kids that are being molested,
That's what they're exposed
rape.
to.
It's our kids that are being defiled. It's even going to the old people. I've never had in Ukambani a situation like that. We don't even have a name for an old man being sodomized. We don't have a name for it in our vernacular. So there's something about music and about art and about media that it does to the minds, particularly impressionable minds, in creating impressions that are right or wrong.
Yep.
And I think if we don't check this and if we do not counter it through music and through the same platforms that we have used to destroy them, to destroy our values. And I can tell you, I believe with all my heart that the media has greatly contributed to the moral rot that we experience in this country. The media must be part of the conversation to reverse the situation.
Now, you've been there. You've been at the helm of the KFCB for a number of years now. And even before that, you were the director of information.
Yes.
So you've had this conversation with the media. What kind of feedback do you get from the media?
I think we have traded.
I'm sure you speak
what,
to
what
all
I get
levels
is
of media,
what I'm hearing
leadership
today
and those
from
in
you, that we
practice.
have traded our values for money. We think money is everything as long as your program is popular, as long as the situation room will trade and it will be popular, anything goes. And that's why some stations are running pornography in the morning and they are the most popular. They will beat Spice and the situation room because
No, we're taking over
you're
shortly.
not doing pornography. This is sad. This is a tragedy of our time. We must never celebrate this because it has serious effects. When the chips are down, and I was here, I was the director of information during the 2007-2008 post-election violence. I saw media houses that went into losses and then to lay off journalists because the economy went down.
Yep.
When this country burns, nobody's safe. I think we've got to agree that the media has to set the right agenda. Do your role. Let the parents do their role. Let the government do its role. Let us all collaboratively agree that we have a problem and we cannot leave our country to continue the way it is. And embrace the BBI report that says let us have long-term big plans. And that's why I talked about the magic bullet. And also let us, engrave this ethos, inculcate moral values in our kids through drama and film festival, through our music, through our art.
Mandatory teaching of ethics.
Let us change our stories, Eric. Let our stories be stories of happiness. While there's depression, we are bombarding people with the depressing, horrific stories day by day, and we are only giving prominence to negativity, as opposed to the happy story and the nice development stories that are taking place. Let's change the cameras to people who are doing the right thing. Let us focus our cameras on heroes in the villages, in the churches, in schools, who are doing the right thing. Let us not glorify evil, because as we do so, we are destroying the moral fabric of our society, and no one will be safe. There will come a time when the poor will have nothing to eat but the rich. I am telling you, there's something so beautiful about you waking up and coming to work and nobody's attacking you.
Yeah, indeed.
Getting out of this station and going home knowing that you are safe.
Asante
We
sana,
are
Dr.
preaching
Mutua.
anarchy, and the consequences are too grave to contemplate.
Thank you for joining us this morning. We'll invite you again. Of course, you've joined us in our conversations via phone, and now here you are in person. You are as good a preacher on the phone as you are live. We had Dr. Ezekiel Mutua, the Chief Executive Officer of the Kenya Film Classification Board. We're asking what magic pill or bullet do we need to revive our national ethos. Of course, he's given us his thoughts on that, and we appreciate very much for all that. And thank you very much for all the comments as well that you're posting on our social media platforms, Spice FM KE, Facebook, YouTube, and on Twitter as well. The conversation continues. This is the Situation Room. Good morning, 12 minutes past 8.
.1 Spice FM. Kisi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
The conversation continues, of course, on our social media platforms, Spice FM KE on Facebook, Spice FM KE on Twitter, and Spice FM KE on YouTube. Of course, on our www.spicefm.co.ke. This is the Situation Room. We broadcast from Nairobi on 94.4. We are in Mombasa on 87.9, 102.5 in Kisumu, 96.0 in Nakuru, 96.7 Eldoret, 90.9 in Nyeri, 97.7 in Malindi. We had in the past hour Dr. Ezekiel Mutua, the Chief Executive Officer of the Kenya Film Classification Board. He has left us, and we thank him very much for having joined us today. Now we continue the conversation. The next one, let's talk about the media and interviews, right? CT. Is it Ndu, right? You want to raise that this morning. Dr. Mutua, would you like to stay on for this particular one? It is an interesting one. It's about interviewing people. Right?
I'm here for you, Eric.
Very good.
Fantastic.
So
Here for
Dr.
you.
Mutua is here. Now he's not speaking as a KFCB chairman, CEO. He's basically speaking
panelist.
as a panelist,
As
as
a
a Kenyan, right? So take it away.
Well, okay. Well, I think it's conversations that we have oftentimes as public. We want to hear things from politicians. We want to know and really understand the dance that is happening. We want to get information. We want to be aware. Information needs then to flow to the public. And of course, the media is right in the middle of that in terms of the responsibility it has that translates this information from people who may be of certain prominence or in certain positions, and then is able to translate this information information down to the people. In many cases, we are the only ones who have the platform upon which now these individuals can now sit, and this information is transferred to the public. And of course, the responsibility lies, this is why media is there, the responsibility lies on the shoulders of the media to share and disseminate this information, to get it directly from the mouths of those who would not otherwise give it in another forum, and then give it to the people. And a lot of times the world over, here in Kenya, around the continent, around the world, we've seen it very easy for people in positions of prominence to be extremely slippery when it comes to giving out this information, or may have certain kinds of information that they're not ready to share with the general public, or for whatever reason they feel that, should they share this information, it now puts them in a position of vulnerability, or then puts them in a position whereby they may be weaker. But we are saying that at this point, the media does bear the responsibility, whatever the case may be, to share this information as plainly as possible with the public, because that responsibility does lie squarely on their shoulders as members of the fourth estate. If we see where politicians, people in positions of influence, are not giving out the information in ways in which we want it to, the onus then lies squarely on media to be able to get that information however they can best. We need to come prepared, we need to be ready, and we need to be available to make sure that this information comes out. And I'm saying that if we are not ready, and if media then is not able to create the platform to be able to ask the questions, to be able to do the research, to then be able to present the information in a way that shares this information with the members of the public, then there is no need bringing these individuals to the fore at all. If we cannot do it in a manner then that feeds the public with information, there's no point doing it whatsoever. The time has come where people need information, and if we're not giving it to them in the way, or at least presenting it in a way where an alternate view then can be expressed, we rather not do it than come out and do a shoddy job over and over again. When information is needed to be presented, we need to make sure that it's done in a way that people will get what they're looking for. And even if they don't get what they're looking for, at least an answer will be presented. If we can't do it right, then there's no need doing it at all.
You're driving an arrow right through the heart, man. What is it?
I think sometimes it's necessary to be then aware of the...
Haitaki makasiriko. Listen, so if I invite Dr. Ezekiel Mutua to an interview, right, and I have prepared a set of questions, of course, there's no interviewer who's going to be walking to an interview unprepared. Well,
we can only assume that.
I hope that statement is recorded and can be replayed over and over again.
The one by Latif.
The one you've started the program with. That's the most powerful and fundamental statement I've heard about our responsibility, and I think we need that challenge this day and time. Before, we used to say the traditional role of the media is to inform, educate, entertain. We moved to a point where we started getting analysis and the media trying to digest and break down information for the people. Now we're at a point where the media is no longer there to just inform, educate, and entertain, because we have other channels of getting that, where the media has got to up its game and indeed resonate with the exigencies of life and ensure that the informed public. Because before, like I said, we used to have KBC that was Baba na Mama, that was only starting with the Mutukufu rice, where the president went to church, who he greeted, and so on and so forth. Now, even when the president does a function, it doesn't have to be the first item on TV. Because things have changed. Because if you do it that way, nobody will listen to you. Because people have other alternative views.
The way I hear Andu presenting her argument this morning is with regards to interview. So you've called somebody for an interview, you prepare for the interview, and they've also prepared for the interview. And then you ask a question that they are not willing to answer. They are within their right not to answer that question. It doesn't mean that because I've come to your interview, CT, that I'm going to answer everything you ask.
You see what the challenge has been.
And I don't have to. I can run away from answering this particular question.
But we prepare. You see, the important point is, do you prepare? What do you want to get out of your host?
The answers.
I mean, your guest.
Yes.
The response that Dr. Mutua is giving is very appropriate, because if you ask a question and deliver it in a certain manner and the response is not what you expected, change the way you want to ask the same question.
Same question asked in a different way, because
Yes.
at the end of the day, what you're looking for is the response to your question. If it means reframing it, if it means presenting another angle, if it means presenting evidence that could lead again to the answer, still, even if you don't get an answer, a lot of times you find that somebody has evaded your question over and over and over again.
Yes.
That in itself is an answer.
The fact
is.
That in itself is an answer. But unfortunately, where we stop is asking the question the first time, and if somebody rebuts with a question, we're done. And then you don't get anything at the end of the day.
Listen, are you assuming that as an audience, as a viewer, I'll only get that this person is unwilling to answer because I did not ask the second time, or the question was not asked of them the second time? The first time somebody's asked a question and they dodge, everybody can see this person is dodging that question. It doesn't matter whether you ask it 10 times and he's not going to answer, or the first time. Move on. You've got 30 minutes in this interview.
Actually, if you rephrase...
If I'm asking Dr. Mutua, are you going to vie for governor of Machakos in 2022? And he starts telling me, the people of Mwala,
Not only Mwala, he says the AIC
the
church,
AIC,
Bas.
Goes all over the
That
place.
one he has avoided.
And then I ask him the second time.
Yeah, and I have a right. The guest has a right to answer your question directly or indirectly.
Meander.
Meander around the issue. The thing is, as an intelligent interviewer and the host of a show, you know what you want to get from the guest. And if you're really determined, you're going to get it, not for your own self, but for the public. For the people you
At
are
the end of the day, you're not sitting
it's about
there.
them.
Right.
So
At the end of the day, you're not
don't-
sitting there for yourself. If you
Thank
wanted it
you.
for yourself, go have a coffee with the
Yeah,
gentleman
yeah,
or the lady and, have a
Thank you.
conversation.
Yeah.
But by the time you're putting it in the public arena, it is not for you. That information, and I'm hoping that it is fueled by what you have done. We talked about being prepared. So the questions obviously should have been, or should be, whatever you're going to get out should be fueled by what you have been able to feel is reverberating as the heartbeat on the ground. And you know that these are the questions that people are asking. You know that these are the concerns that people have. And so that conversation is an answer directly to these questions that the public has. It's about the public
Yeah,
and the
but
questions they're
it points
asking.
to the interviewer as well, because sometimes you can have a guest who's very overwhelming.
Oh, absolutely.
Not overwhelming city. One of the challenges that we have
Yes.
is having jacks of all trades and masters of none in newsrooms. People have not specialized on anything. The only gift they have is the gift of the gab. No speciality, no depth. So you invite a learned guy, as a guy who is specialized, a doctor in a specialized area, who has gone to school. You didn't read. Then you come and ask parochial questions. And the guy gets offended because he can see you are shallow. Let me tell you, the people you invite to the studio are also intelligent.
Interestingly, they've come prepared.
Yes, they come prepared. They even read you, they watch you. I told
They
you,
listen to
I
us before
came,
they come here.
I came, sat at the parking to listen, and I came listening to you in the car to get what
our
kind
mood
of
this
guys are
morning.
going to interview me, because unfortunately, we have had telephone conversations,
Yes, we have.
but I've never had one-on-one, so I really wanted to listen. Because I didn't just want to come and land here and I'm facing city, I'm facing and I have no clue. I know Eric, at least he has interviewed me before. The thing is, we come prepared. Are you guys prepared? We are specialists. You see, I've given you my CV. Then you come here and treat me like, I'm just from the market. Like my history in the media does not count for it. You see, I'll challenge you, or I'll just realize we are wasting time. That's what I'm saying. It's important to respect the intelligence,
let's put this in context.
the intelligence of the guests,
Yes.
but also to be prepared on the subject, not for your own sake, but
not
for
for
the
you.
sake of
the
your
audience.
listeners,
And
your
that's,
audience.
and that's all agreed. Let's put it in context. We've seen a number of interviews. Like last night, there was an interview with Raila Odinga.
Absolutely.
Last week, there was an interview with the Deputy
DP.
President, William Ruto. And the Deputy President is actually a man who's been interviewed many times, not just locally, even internationally.
Even on Hard Talk.
Even on Hard Talk on BBC.
Yes, he has.
And this man is
He's a master of the slippery slide.
No,
Let's just be
Dr.
honest.
Ruto is a doctor. First of all, he holds a PhD. He's intelligent. He's a sharp guy. So if you want to interview him, you're not going to corner him with some bit of parochial questions. He's going to dodge. And it's his right to dodge. It's his right to say, he's not married to so-and-so.
How
he's
much are
married
you
to
worth?
so-and-so.
Then he'll say how much he's worth. If he doesn't want to answer that question, he's not going to answer it.
Do you know, if you came and quoted, for example, a law that says you must declare, there's no compelling reason for me to say what I'm worth here. Because there are processes where we declare our worth.
Yes.
So why do you want to why didn't you read? Because so that if I don't say Then you ask me confirm whether you're worth this much, because my records are there somewhere. So you're not prepared.
We've put it there. Actually, let me just play this clip when
Right,
he was
there you go.
interviewed by Stephen Saka of the BBC Hard Talk. It was about his wealth.
For your information,
So if you've
Saka,
got it, I would love to see it.
You
and so
are,
would the
you
Kenyan
are
people.
behind the news on that matter. You are behind the news. Every public figure, by law, is supposed to submit a list of assets and liabilities to the Speaker of the
That's
National
right.
Assembly.
That's
That I have tried. That I have not tried. That I have done. And in fact,
But you keep telling
we
me,
have
oh, the
gone-
media
we
have done it
gone-
for
we've
me.
gone
This is not a
further.
que- this is not a
I'm
question of
I'm
the
just telling
media.
you,
This is
the
something-
media has gone further to carry out a lifestyle audit on William Ruto, the only politician who has been subjected to lifestyle audit by
So
the media.
when you did the sums and you catalogued all of your assets, how much were you worth?
It is that information is available in the public domain.
Well, great.
You
I'm
should
looking-
have
tell
you should
me.
have you should have done some research before you can.
But if it's in the public domain, it's not a secret. So tell me, how much are you worth?
It is in public domain, Shaka. I encourage you to go to Google and find out what William Ruto owns.
Will you or will you not tell me, given that you say you've been completely open and public with it, and that every Kenyan knows this figure, according to you,
I
tell
encourage
me,
you.
share it with me.
I encourage you, Shaka, to go to the website on Parliament and get that
So
information.
you're not prepared to tell me how much you
I
are
am
worth?
prepared to tell you where to find the information.
Well, there you go.
Absolutely.
There you go. So
Why
in this
didn't
case,
he research?
so can you imagine? Look at how the conversation would have changed just a little bit, even at that point, if he said, "Well, these are the figures. This public research that we're
Confirm
talking
or
about,
deny.
These are the figures. Now confirm or
You
deny."
know, the
now
DP
at that
the DP
point,
knows very
at
well.
that point, you would have
Aside
been
from
able to
saying
be
that this
at
information
that
is in the
point-
public
hold on,
domain,
Eric.
it's not in the
Hold
public
on,
domain.
Eric.
It is.
Hold on, Eric.
Where?
At that
The
point,
law requires every public servant to declare their wealth every 2 years. We do it publicly. There's a form that's available on the website, not just for the DP or the president. All of us.
Where-
Obviously, people have their own ways of evading, giving all this information.
they declare,
or
who's the
registering companies
custodian
in
of
the
this
names of their
information?
relatives. But I think for the purpose of that interview, it is upon the guy interviewing to have done his research and say, this is what it says you are worth. Okay, so why
Now,
do you want to get
what-
another information?
What that allows you to do with that information, because again, remember, going back to the audience, the people who are waiting for this information, because obviously it has become something that is of such, huge interest. People want to know, okay, this individual, how do they make this? How much money do they have,
Exactly.
first of all? And then they can now begin to make inferences or deductions and say, okay, based on this, then is it possible that in the time that he was, vice president or whatever, sitting in whatever position of government or leadership, is
Yes.
it possible that he would have made this money? Because that, at the end of the day, is what people want to be able to know.
Exactly.
Now, once you have that information and you're saying, okay, well, you have the information. He said the information is public. If you had that information before, then you come and say, look, 10 billion shillings now. Are you able to tell us or
How
give us a
you made
timeline
this
how you
amount?
made this money? The whole conversation then now changes. Should he refuse to answer that question, you can then now speculate.
That's actually
from
the
that.
question I was asking. Why the obsession with how much you're worth as opposed to the process? How did you get it? Because the question shouldn't be how much I'm worth.
It begins there.
It should be
That's-
that's
I'm
there,
paid. I'm
absolutely.
paid.
That's a first point. I cannot
if you say,
ask you, how did you acquire your wealth?
Eric,
What wealth?
If I don't
If
know
you
how
tell
much
me,
you have.
I can
I
tell
know,
you, Dr.
I
Mutua,
know
I
for-
know you have this, and the other. How did you acquire them?
Thank you. That should be the
That's
focus,
what we're saying.
as opposed to whether
What do
whether
you
I've
own?
10 houses. Yeah, that's parochial. The question should be: you are the CEO of Kenya Film Classification Board. It's on record that you own this. How did you acquire
And
it
yet your
against
salary
your salary?
is this.
That's a simple question.
That's the question.
But when you're obsessed with how much are you worth, and you insist on that point, I'm trying to also to ask myself as the person, the audience,
The consumer of
the consumer of that kind of interview. What are you up to?
What is your agenda?
What
What
is
is
your
your
agenda?
agenda?
And at the end of the day, knowing the character of some of these people, that character in what we've talked about now, in terms of being very clever and knowing how to dodge some of these things, you can't have a gun in the holster without a bullet in the chamber. It's useless. What are you doing? You have to come prepared and say, okay, this is the information I have on this fellow before I come and start asking the questions.
But
Again, remembering who you are pandering to,
In fact,
who you're trying to share
Some
this
interviews
information
we've
for.
seen.
Yes.
Christiana Mampo of CNN had an interview with the late Robert Mugabe, right? And among the questions she asked was, when do you intend to leave office?
And he asked, do you ask that question to the Queen?
Yes.
Yeah.
So what kind of preparation would you have wanted Christina Amanpour to have had?
No. She was satisfied with Mugabe's question because we are saying, is it only a question reserved for African?
And and other people who may have been listening to this interview would have been
And
satisfied,
don't
or you would
go-
have given them an aha moment because they would be like, okay,
Absolutely.
right.
And
why are
don't-
they asking
yeah.
him this? Why when he's going to leave? How come they've not asked other
The
Western
Queen-
leaders
yes.
when they're planning on leaving? It
And
would have been an aha moment for
Eric,
them.
don't go for an interview thinking that you are clever than the guy you
interviewee.
are hosting. No, it doesn't always work that way.
Yes.
Or imagining that this guy, I'm going to nail him. Don't go there with a set mind. Go there to give information to the public. And to get that information is an intelligent, nice way. First of all, I hate the manner in which people believe that for an interview to be,
Must be
juicy, must be
confrontational.
confrontational, hot seat. No. Look at what Joseph Warugun did last night.
You've been on the hot seat. No,
Look at what-
you're not.
Look at what Joseph Warugun did last night.
Yep.
It was calm. He may not get the point, the bonga points in terms of, this was popular.
Or
He really
forcefulness,
cornered
yes.
the former prime minister. Because the idea is not to corner him. The idea was to respect him, first of all, as an elder, as the former prime minister, as an Ngima, as someone who has done so much for this country. Go to him to get information, to demystify some things, to benefit the audience, not confrontation. So for me, actually, I gave Joseph Warugu a lot of credit for the manner, the calm manner in which he approached the interview with the Right Honorable Prime Minister Raila Odinga.
What did you think of the other interview with the
Fantastic. I posted about it. I
With
thought,
DP William Ruto.
given the circumstances, I think Ken Mijung did very well as well.
Let's define the circumstances.
The
maybe
only
after we go
challenge
from this
was
work. I think it's
he
necessary.
came from the background of you must nail William Ruto. You are talking to a PhD holder, very sharp guy who is going to dodge those questions, and also who knows when you are not asking, when you have no substance. So he will also call you out, and just sort of make fun and make mismeet of your silly questions. So the point
so
is,
there we get to know what he actually thought about that interview.
when you are approaching these people with the mind of tonight we are going to corner him. You see, the interview was trending because they thought the DP was going to take on the president, or in the political temperatures that are going up in the country, he was going to become confrontational. When he speaks about his respect and loyalty to the president, then it's like there's no interview.
It throws them off balance completely.
Completely.
I don't
Because you came expecting
I
that.
actually don't think it was Ken Mijungu who was thrown off balance. It's the audience that
It
was
is
thrown
the
off
audience,
balance.
but you
Because
see,
the audience
you
was
pander
expecting
to the
audience was expecting, a sort of a confrontational interview.
That's
and here
why
is
that's
an
why
interviewer.
a journalist must not get into that temperature. The journalist must remove himself and come as an independent mind to serve even the guy who is expecting that. So it was up to the host to navigate.
Let's take a look at what's happening on the roads, and before that, let's hear this clip from the interview last week between Ken Mijungu and DP William Ruto, courtesy of NTV.
Has not been made public by you, that you cannot tell us how much you're worth. Because if you told us I'm worth 1 billion shillings, I'll ask you, in the 28 years, you think it's possible to have amassed 1 billion shillings, but we don't know how much you have.
How did you have 1 billion shillings?
Now I'm asking, for example, if you told me,
Okay.
if you told me you're worth 1 billion shillings,
Let
I
me
will ask you a direct
let me ask
question.
let me ask you a question.
Yes.
How old is Sugabaga? On Facebook. How old is he?
Just getting out of teenage, getting out of youth.
How much is he worth?
Billions of shillings, but Your Excellency,
So
we're talking about your journey.
You cannot tell me that a teenager can possibly be the richest man on earth, and a 53-year-old man should own nothing. I mean, surely, give me some credit.
Okay.
I am a businessman.
You're a businessman.
I work hard. I have been a public servant, for member of parliament for close to 25 years. I have been deputy president now for 8 years. I surely.
Why is it not so easy for you just to state this position the same way you're stating these other positions?
Which other position? Which other
Just
position?
how much is William Ruto worth? Why is it so difficult? Why is it information that is held too close to your chest?
My friend, it is because of the deceit that is around this question. And it is because nobody gets asked this question except William.
94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi. Traffic.
Okay, folks, wherever you feel it's going to land on traffic this morning, it seems Mombasa Road, Thika Road, Langata Road, everywhere you look, it is chocker blocked. Police finally at the Westlands roundabout trying to help traffic, but it seems that a massive traffic jam then has been created on Waiaki Way because of what we've seen with the collapse of the wall on Red Hill Road this morning, coming down through the Kabete area, and then, of course, trying to join Waiaki Way is really, really crazy today. So nobody has been moving for quite some time. Mombasa Road all the way from the Gateway Mall, we still have that traffic trying to turn into the airport junction and then way past that all the way down to General Motors. Using Bagathi Way is an option coming off Langata Road right now when you get there eventually. Jogo Road seems to be what is offering us some hope this morning. But everywhere we look, it definitely is smack dab in the middle of traffic hour. Hopefully you get out of it. Alternate routes right now that we can see off Mombasa Road, you can, if you've not reached there, use the Southern Bypass or the Eastern Bypass as well. If you're trying to get into the city, Kenyatta Avenue is locked down with traffic. If you find an alternate, please share. Let's put some people out of their misery. Spice FM KE is how you can reach us on Twitter, or give us a call, 0719 012 600.
.1 Spice FM, Kisi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
And the conversation continues. This is the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. CT Muga, Eric Latif, Nduoko. We're joined in this hour by Dr. Ezekiel Mutua, PhD in Media Studies. We're discussing media and how to have people interviewed. And Ndu, what was it that you were raising this morning?
I'm saying, look, we need to come prepared. Media definitely needs to come prepared, especially because you're serving off a platform that bears the responsibility on its shoulders to share this pertinent information with the public. Whether it is information that needs to be passed through, whether it is information that the public is asking for. Here we have platforms over and over and over again that can be used to share this information. If you don't come prepared, especially with knowledge of what these individuals can be like at any given situation, in some cases, by some individuals, especially when we know that ahead of time, vital information or questions that you're going to ask need to be backed by this vital information. We need to do the extra work, especially because there are people who are waiting to hear it. And we can't say that, oh, well, yes, we can. Because it is public, and because those who are waiting are members of the public as well, it can't just be a walk in the park, any other day kind of run-of-the-mill, whatever you want to do. The hard work has to be done in order for people to understand the larger picture of really what is going on, to hear it from the horse's mouth, as it were. But if you have somebody who is dancing to their clever way of doing things and actually playing you at your own game, then it becomes very difficult to be able to share this information.
I always say, just don't hate the player, hate the game.
And Eric, I think one of the other challenge that we face is that media interviews seem to focus more on personalities and politics of the day as opposed to the issues. That offends a lot of people because we have this obsession with politics and not the real issues. And the moment that even the guest realizes that you're just not interested with the issues, you are interested with the rumor mills and parochial politics in the streets, people get edgy and people get offended. I've gone to interviews and you find a young kid who does not even know that I was Director of Information, and that was 10 years ago, who does not know that I was Secretary General of Kenya Union of Journalists. And so they're interviewing me completely out of sync. They have no clue who I am.
So it's not your young kid in this case.
No. Thank God there are no young kids in the panel today. But sometimes you go there and you wonder, why did I waste my time? Where did this fellow come from? One, they're half-baked. They're not educated. They're not experienced.
So that's another problem that we face, according to you.
And that's why I talked about masters, jacks of all trades and masters of none. You know,
when you were practicing as a journalist,
yes,
Dr. Mutua, did you have your PhD?
No, I didn't have.
Did you have
but
your
I
masters?
was a tough guy.
All right.
No,
the first
I
interview that you
sat-
went to, I
Yes.
bet the person that you interviewed the first time, they must have had one or two. Yes, they must have respected you for one or two questions that you asked, but they looked at you. You know, some of them maybe dismissed you just from how you looked.
Let me tell you how I started. I did not start by interviewing the president or Mike Kibaki. I interviewed President Mike Kibaki on the 7th year of my journalism. I started at the Nation Center as a trainee reporter. They even took me to somewhere, Kimathi Street, to Queen's College to learn typing.
Yes.
I mean, I was taken to the basics. Then I was sent to SIU, those basic courses that were taught by Joe Covey about journalism in a changing world. I sat under PLO Lumumba and others to learn media law and ethics, to learn, the different
Yes.
the areas that I wanted to specialize in. So I took almost 5 years. By the time I interviewed the first minister, I think it was the Minister for Information then, called Johnson Makau, the first time I interviewed a big personality. But you see, a guy who comes from nowhere, interviewing.
It is
So
not
what I
nowhere
hear
all the
you
time.
saying now, Dr. Mutua, is that
There was a
there's
procedure.
there's a vacuum.
And
in
then I
terms of
used to
training
go,
and
I used to be
experience.
attached to people like Eman Omari, people like Muthui Mwai, veterans.
So you're assuming these nobodies
That
that
have
you're
not gone
speaking
through
of-
No, they're not nobodies. They're not nobodies.
No,
First of all, correct
it's
that.
my word.
No,
It's
no,
my
no.
word.
Yes, yes.
I'm just. It's called license. Yes, I've taken
Yeah.
what you've said and I've extrapolated it.
No, they will think I said there are nobodies there.
Okay.
So I hope we correct
Dr.
that.
Ezekiel
That's
Mutua
the
did not
city.
say you are a nobody.
Yeah, it is city.
Is that
we're
okay
saying.
now? Yes.
These nobodies
Now,
by
these
city.
individuals who are not well known
Yes.
have to start somewhere.
Yes.
But this lack of knowledge that you say they exhibit, is it not an opportunity for you? Because these are journalists.
Yes.
This is something you've been immersed in. This is yet another opportunity for you
To learn.
to pull that gentleman in. And
Absolutely.
Yes.
And I agree with you. That's what I
I
do.
wouldn't
That's
I'm
what I
saying
do,
I
but
wouldn't,
painfully.
I wouldn't dismiss them.
Would you do
No,
the same?
I don't dismiss them.
Would you do the same thing, City, if you are being interviewed by a journalist and you felt that this person is not up to depth with?
Yes, I would.
The-
But remember the background I come from.
You're a teacher,
I'm a
so
teacher.
you're accommodating.
Yes, but my whole approach
But
to this
City,
thing
we are
would-
missing a very important point because I
Yes.
was saying I was attached for 4 years, attached to a senior reporter. Even when I started having a byline, it would be Eric Latif and Ezekiel
And-
Mutua. It never started with Ezekiel Mutua.
Right.
There are people like Catherine Mugendi, one of the, a lady when I was being employed at the Nation was actually at the reception who immediately came up and started writing on environment and she specialized on that and she had a quicker route to fame. Attending international conference and so on. There are those exceptional cases. But the procedure at the Nation Media Group was you don't just land here and
the top.
Muteki Jao was our news editor and you are sent to interview the minister
Immediately.
or to interview Mwai Kibaki. Mwai
You see-
Kibaki was
Ma-
then
ma-
the
many
leader of
editors-
opposition. So what happened is we were attached to
It's
people
true,
and
Dr.
we went to
Mutua.
parliament, we went to court.
Just to move the conversation forward, it's true that, and you'll find that very many editors, of course, who sit now, they'll tell you, they'll give you the same kind of history.
No, they don't have time now in the money
No,
right
but
now.
they'll give you the same kind of history.
These half-baked
rose
guys.
up, how they rose up, and they also understand the importance of sending somebody who is at par with the person that they're going to interview.
Today,
right?
today, do they do that?
Yes, they will tell you that.
Where?
They're your peers. They are
Today,
your peers.
today
No,
they have no money, they have no time.
So I hear
they
what you're
have,
saying.
Yes.
What
But
we're
also
looking
at
at today
the
is
same
that
time-
commercial interest now trumps
Thank you.
the value of proper
Exactly,
journalism. Is that what we're saying?
specialization training.
Not in all cases, and that's why
Yeah, not in all cases, but
we have-
majority of
we
the
have played-
journalists
we have
really
played
are
a
not
clip
up
here
to
by
par.
an experienced journalist, right? An experienced journalist in the name of Stephen Saka of BBC. When you were sitting down with the deputy president and he asked a question of the DP, just threw him off. This happens. It happens. Just because it happens, once in Kenya and we are here, we are seeing it. It doesn't mean that it doesn't happen across the world. This is the nature of the business.
Oh, no.
You will find, even if you go to Al Jazeera, you'll watch an interview and you'll see one person being interviewed and he will completely throw the interviewer off because you ask the question and the guy says, remember, when you're sitting down at an interview, the person who's sitting across you is also trying to size you out. And they're thinking, if you corner me, I'm going to look bad. So I'm going to make sure that you don't corner me. Whatever question, that's why I'm preparing for this interview. So whatever question you ask me, I'm going to be prepared either to answer it or to dodge it or to find a clever way of exposing you as the one who's
Eric,
ill-prepared.
not even that. You will,
That's the
you
nature
will
of the
study
business.
that person's interviewing processes.
Yes.
You will likely get yourself involved in their previous interviews.
Exactly.
You come there when you know this person. You even know how they go about it.
Very well.
Now, when I was being trained as a teacher, we were taught something. Don't ask questions to which you do not have an answer.
To you yourself
Don't-
should have the answer.
Don't.
Yes.
I did ask questions to which I didn't have an answer even when I was teaching. But I realized that one of the things that endeared me to students was when I admitted I didn't know.
Thank you.
Because by and large, I knew literally everything. But the thing that, that I don't know.
Yeah, but now today, this know-it-all, journalists who have just come from the school. And some have not even gone to school of journalism. And I think, like Du is saying, there's a challenge of media houses are going through difficult times. And so we may not have as much manpower. As we used to have, where you can attach,
Especially for research.
Yes,
Because
for
like what you're talking
research.
about, if you're talking
but
about
there's
asking
it's
somebody's
important for
wealth,
people to specialize.
if you ask somebody's wealth, then it requires that you've actually done some investigative work beforehand.
There's a
And that
string of
investigative
activities that
hand
you have
is.
to go through.
So, yes, this is what you declared. However, we've also established that you also own this and the other that you didn't declare.
And you see, those are the two important points I wanted to bring out. One, training. Number two, specialization. And then the role of investigative journalism. Because the reason why you see even people, public officials like myself, you can say all manner of things, oh, he's a thief, he's this, and I still go back to the office. It's because, first of all, when you say things that I can't even relate with, you make us even immune to bad stories that we don't care anymore. In civilized nations and in places where there's serious media, when a public official has been put in a headline as involved in a scandal, they should not even report to the office. Should even have that shame. But you see, where we know media scandalizes people, media destroys families, media destroys reputation for fun, and this is what they do. Even to the point where the president says magazine ya kufunga nyama. So you can write what you want. I can even choose not to read.
Yeah.
We must not bring the media to that indignity. We must redeem the role of the media and its important place in society.
As the fourth estate.
By ensuring that we uphold the truth and that we are professional.
Indeed, the conversation continues. We are discussing media and the role of media, and especially bringing out the information to the public. Nduwako is saying, if you're going to interview somebody, that's telling us in the media, if you're going to interview somebody, make sure that you're well prepared to bring out all the information out of that person. And if you're not prepared, then don't host them. Because you're going to see cases where the interviewee outsmarts the interviewer. And this happens all the time. And I'm saying, well, it's part of the game. One day you'll be had, one day you will have the next person. It's 13 minutes to 9 o'clock. The conversation continues. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room, right here on Spice FM.
.9 Spice FM, Mombasa. 96.1 Spice FM, Kisi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
With conversation continues right here on Spice FM. So let me play this particular clip as well. The same person, the DP William Ruto, and how he knows how to respond to questions put to him. Here he was being interviewed by Hussein Mohammed, formerly of Citizen TV, and of course they were talking about the dam scandal. A lot of money had been alleged to have been misappropriated in that scandal. And this is the question and answer.
So what if investigations, Honorable Ruto, ultimately reveal that 21 billion shillings has been misappropriated? What would you say then?
Really? 21 billion shillings? In a government that, in this government,
you have said the independent
lost in that transaction?
You have said the independent, right?
Let me tell you, Hussein, they are phantom figures. Do you know how 21 billion shillings looks like? Really, this is not money that can get lost in somebody's pocket. This is serious.
Was the question answered or not?
It wasn't answered, and that was very clear. And you see, what he actually did was diversionary. in every way, because what he did,
What was the question?
He asked, what
What
if
if it's
it is
established that 21 billion shillings?
He was asking.
And the
then
way,
he now,
the way I
he-
hear
hold
Dr.
on,
Ruto replying
hold on.
is,
He
it's
didn't-
impossible.
No. That's not. He said very clearly. Do you
He
know
was
what
answering
21
his own
billion? He
question.
was answering his own question.
No, he answered that que- he
He
said-
diverted it.
Wait,
He-
Eric, explain to us how he answered that
He
question.
How did
answered
he
this
answer
question
it?
this way. He, in his mind, it's improbable that this kind of money can be
In his
stolen.
mind. So
That's-
now
that's
Yes.
tricky
you're
territory.
taking
what
up
he-
prophetic.
No,
Tricky territory.
that's what he's saying.
You cannot tell
This
us what
is-
is in the deputy president's
This is
mind.
what he is saying. Come
No.
on.
Then
no.
He
say
wanted
this is what
the-
he said,
he
and then
wanted the
continue.
Yes,
But
interviewer-
and
you're
that's
the one who prefaces by saying
And
in
that's
his
what
mind.
and
what
that's
he was
why-
thinking.
and that's why I'm saying this is what he is responding. His response was, it is impossible for us to find that kind of money has disappeared. So the premise of your question is wrong.
No,
it isn't.
it isn't wrong.
It isn't wrong.
Because he was asking with all that has been said and done, what if 21 billion?
It's
has
hypothetical,
actually
for
gone
heaven's
missing?
sake.
It's hypothetical. What he was
So
asking
when you
him-
ask somebody a hypothetical question, what do you want them to give you?
But
No.
you see, well, let me tell
A
you
hypothetical answer?
but my understanding of that, where the DP was coming from, is where you hype this as the truth and the only truth. Chimamanda talks about one angle story, one line, just
Yes.
one line, and we don't get the other angle of the story.
The
That's very
alternate truth.
dangerous. The
Yes.
alternative truth.
danger
Someone
of
said
one-sided story.
there are three sides. There are three sides to a story: yours, mine,
And the
And
truth.
the truth.
and the truth itself. And I think where he was coming from is where that issue had blown up so much that actually the whole country knew 21 billion has gone to the drain, has been stolen. I think there were other sides of the story, and where we get offended as the newsmakers is where, as a public official, you say something has gone wrong at KFCB, and you don't give me a chance to explain, and I'm the one involved. I'm the one you are mentioning. The Code of Ethics for the Practice of Journalism for this country, which I participated in drafting, says the person mentioned in unfavorable context shall be given the right of reply, or at least be given equal prominence as the story that was misleading.
So
or
now, that's
so
fine.
when you say 21, why don't we get his side of the story and articulate it in equal measure?
But you see, this is what happened. The gentleman asked the question very clearly in this
Yes.
case.
Yeah.
What if we find out that 21 billion shillings was actually missing? The response came not about the what if. It was now getting everybody to understand the magnitude of 21 billion
Exactly.
without actually looking at the question.
Very
that was
clever.
very clever on his
Absolutely.
point, because you
But
take
but
away
also let's-
take away
Yeah.
from the question of,
Because you are
oh
just
my
talking-
goodness, what if 21 billion shillings is actually missing from the national treasury? This money is missing.
the
That's the
context-
question we should
the
be
con-
asking.
the
But this
context
guy
here,
he diverted everything to get you
The
now to stick on the
context is
point
before this
that
question, the
21
question had been
billion
asked
was
about the
sensationalist.
dams. And the deputy president had denied that there's a likelihood that 21 billion shillings could have been lost. If I've already answered you and told you, no, I do not believe that 21 billion shillings is lost, then you ask me, what if it's lost?
Now,
no,
why do you want to
I think it's a
assume?
valid question.
It's a valid question.
It is a valid question. Okay, it isn't lost, but what if it were?
What if it were?
It's not a bad.
What if
follow-up
all these
question.
things that they've been saying are actually true?
What if it actually
By the way,
happens?
I
What
don't,
if-
I
what
don't
if you're not
agree. I
alive?
don't agree that's a valid question when you are dealing with the deputy president of the country who has expressed himself on that point that it is not lost. Then you now go and say, what if? Because now what we are saying is, why don't you leave the agencies that are investigating?
To investigate.
And then,
But Dr.
yeah,
Mutua,
then
the
we
reason
confront
why
him.
the what if becomes relevant is because we have a history in this country of things which you thought were not possible.
happening.
actually
Yes,
happened.
yes, it is
and
true.
we've had situations where you didn't think a certain
Yes,
amount
but
of
that-
money could be
yeah,
misappropriated,
that's
and it was
not how-
misappropriated.
And in
That's
this
not to
case,
treat
the
a
money
government
actually
official
was
or-
lost. And
Yeah.
in this case, the money actually was lost.
And remember, in that story,
21 billion.
In that story, no, to date we don't know.
we don't know if it was 21 billion.
But that's why it is lost.
That is why it is lost, because they
if
don't know
we
if it was
don't
21
know,
or not.
the jury
We
is
don't
still out
know.
there.
No.
Exactly.
Dr. Mutua,
The jury is still out
money
there.
to that amount that we hear of was allocated for this project.
And the project
Do we
did
know
not
where
come
else
to
that
be.
money was taken? No. Is this
matter
situation
is in
shrouded?
court, by the way, so
it can
let's
be in
not-
court
It's
as much
under
as it likes.
investigation.
Is this matter still vague in every account? Yes. Has there ever been a definite statement as to, look, that money was never spent, here it is?
Here it
The
is.
answer is no.
No.
So it is lost.
You see now that conclusion. That conclusion is not professional.
City,
If
how
you-
would you have answered that question?
Which
Yeah.
particular question?
yeah.
What if it was
What
lost?
if you are the DP?
If you were
I would
the
have
DP.
answered probably the same way he answered it.
But
Thank you.
this is what we're saying.
Thank you.
This
I would have
exactly.
answered
You
it
know,
precisely the way he had answered it.
All right.
You
Ndu,
know,
on that
there's
route.
a platform, Latif.
How would you have asked that question? How would you have ensured that
Answer
you get
to me.
an answer to that question?
This is what I'm saying. Not necessarily gotten an answer to it, but then expose others. I say clearly you don't want to answer me. Now say that this is what we have seen so far. This is what we have seen so far.
Innuendo.
We have been told that's okay. It could
Eric-
be innuendo. It could
Eric,
be
why aren't you
speculation.
asking me the question you're asking? Do
It could be speculation. It could be
You're the
innuendo.
newsmaker here. She's the interviewer.
It
I've
could be-
allocated you roles.
It could be innuendo. It could be speculation. Whatever it is a premise upon which people then give their information later. It doesn't really matter.
Absolutely.
Because it is what people think, it's what people believe, it is what people hear, it's what then people translate. It doesn't matter upon which premise you set it. That is what it is. So if I either am avoiding your question, or if you ask me 10 times and I give you the same, you've given a response. And you've told people that, number one, I have something to hide. And it is up to them to translate it in whichever way they want.
Actually, do no, not
I have,
necessarily.
well, it is
You
an
ask-
option.
you want to know how I would
It's an
have
option,
answered?
and
Yes.
there's several options.
I would
Dr.
have done
Mutua,
it.
how would you have answered if you were the DP?
The late Somboya used to do it this way.
Yes.
He would listen to a journalist ask a question like that and say, wow, that's a wonderful question. But if I were you, I
would
would
have
put it
asked.
this way.
So he asks himself a question and then proceeds to answer his
Answering
own
his
question.
own question.
Yes.
No, you help the journalist
Yes.
who has no clue because so that you get substance out of this conversation. So he would say, good question, but if I were you, I
Excellent.
would put it this way.
So how would you have
so
put
you
it?
don't hurt them. I would say that suppose the investigative agencies establish, because that's where we are, that 21 billion is lost. Will you resign? Will you eat back your words? I mean, it has to do with processes. You can't also appear like you're concluding that it's lost. Because if you conclude, and I'm involved in this saga, and I know I told you about the one angle story.
Yep.
If I know the other angle, the other side of the truth, and then you are pushing your truth as the only truth, then it's offensive.
It
And
is
we-
offensive.
and we get
do
to
it
an
in a
impasse.
way that you don't offend the person you interview.
Why
It
don't you
serves
give
no
your
purpose.
Why don't you give your alternative side of the truth?
And
I
that's
mean,
what-
that's the opportunity you're being given.
That's why I'm saying I would have done it the Tomboya way. That good question, but if I were you, I would ask it this way. Then I
think
would
in-
give the facts as I know them.
In this particular case, what we are seeing is the interviewee basically interjecting the interviewer, because this question is not complete.
It's
The
not-
person
and then
has started,
there's diversionary
the person has
tactics are
started
being
asking
applied.
the question,
But Eric,
and then the interviewee say, oh, "What do you mean?"
But
In this
Eric,
country,
but
well, it's impossible.
it actually lends credence to what Ndu was saying, because if you are a journalist who's worth their weight in salt or gold,
Or ink.
or ink, or airtime, you would have been able to listen, deflect it, and continue. But it is clear this particular interview was thrown off balance again.
And they stuck on that point, and he was thrown off.
Yes.
But if that's what I'm saying. It doesn't. I mean, you trained in this, and you know for a fact that they even tell you in your training, some of your practical trainings, and you're told many times, practice in front of the mirror. If you must sing it in the shower, do whatever you need to do. You stick on that point, because until you
Over
get
and over and over again.
until you get a favorable answer.
I also train people in to answer questions, right? Interviewees, and the thing is, always pivot back to your key communication message. If I came here, like Dr. Mutua came here today to tell us it's the media's role to ensure that ethics and values are propagated within the country. Whatever kind of question we're asking him,
He goes back there.
goes and takes us back to it's a media,
Which is okay, because
it's a
at the
media.
end of the day-
NYS, it's a media.
Exactly,
This
but you know that's
is
also
about-
that is also messaging in itself, because then you can also deduce from all of that Mutua came here today to tell us one thing, and he's not interested in anything else. That itself is also a response. That's also an answer. And then how you choose to translate it, then is up to you. But that in itself is also a response.
You know, when I'm going for a press conference, I ask myself, what do I want the headline to look like? Okay? So that has been my life. And that's the life of many intelligent newsmakers. What is the headline tomorrow out of my interview? So I came here so that the headline would be that media regulation is critical for the recalibration of or the restoration of our moral values. The point has to be within my core. My core mandate is regulation of the media.
Do you think we were prepared to?
You handled it so well. I don't stay this long in an interview. Watch me. I mean, I conduct interviews even with Jeff Koinange. I hardly ever take an hour. I do not. I'm busy. It is either the subject or the people conducting the interview will make me feel it's conversation worth my time.
We'll take both.
Yeah, so you've done very well for yourself.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mutua.
Yeah, but I've seen people asking what is Spice FM. They've never heard about it. So today I've given you a lot of bonga points. Guys,
Very good.
me. I really promoted the station
Very
since
good.
yesterday.
And for that, you
have
owe
not
us some money.
appreciated. No, since yesterday, the KFCB team has been tweeting and posting on social media. Nele Muluka and her team. I think since you did not appreciate, let me appreciate the KFCB communication team. Have you seen them? Am I lying?
They've done a good
No,
job.
you're not
Oh
lying.
yes, since
They've
yesterday.
done a
I
good
don't
job.
think you get
Asante
guests like this.
sana, Nelly
So
and all your
credit
team.
belongs to Nelly Muluka and the
Asante sana.
communication team and the KFCB team. Asanteni sana, guys.
Thank you.
Knows
you
how
very
to
much.
plug. Thank you very much for tuning in. This is a Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. The conversation continues as well on our social media platforms. It's 9 o'clock. Let's take a look at what's happening on the roads, and then we return. Good morning.
Sugar and spice and everything I spice FM.
Spice up your life. 94.4 Spice FM.
Of course, we're still experiencing the
Nairobi.
crazy jam on Langata Road. It starts from Bomas. It's definitely a Monday morning. Trying to get into the city centre is not happening as best we thought. The bottleneck at the junction of Ngong Road and Kingara Road seems to have been sorted, but there's traffic all over. Trying to get into the city centre and approach the city mortuary roundabout is not happening this morning. Okay, let's see what else we have here. Mandera Road traffic is terrible, stretching from Kenya High all the way, and this is in Kileleshwa. Of course, trying to feed. People have used that as an alternate to get off what was the traffic on Wayaki Way, but this has compounded the matter. So across the city, even at 9 o'clock, we still have terrible, terrible traffic. It's definitely a Monday morning. The eastern and southern bypass are giving off some relief, but you're going to have to sit tight where you are and exercise some patience, folks. Remember, obey the traffic rules. Safe lives are what matter this morning. Spice of MKE is how you can reach us on Twitter. Give us a call, 0719 012 600.
102.5 Spice FM. Kisumu. This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
This is also Kenya's biggest conversation, broadcasting in Nairobi on 94.4. We are on 7.9 in Mombasa, 102.5 in Kisumu, 96.0 in Nakuru, 96.7 in Eldoret, 90.9 Nyeri, and 97.7 in Malindi. We are live streaming, as we always do, on Spice FM KE, Facebook, Spice FM KE, Twitter and YouTube, and www.spicefm.co.ke. Let's talk about the state of our healthcare, C.T. Muga.
Yes, whenever we think of healthcare in this country, especially in the recent past, the thing that comes to your mind is the absence of it. And one of the things that also features very prominently is the number of healthcare workers who are on strike. And yet, this wouldn't be an issue if this had always been the case. This is an issue now because for the longest time, our healthcare system actually functioned very well. Both the private and the public sectors within this particular field functioned. They provided the care that they are mandated and they are known to provide. But then again, it looks like this is a day for the rain beating us. So when exactly did the rain start beating us? One of the things now in modern times that our health providers have been characterized with is business practices that are considered really, really unseemingly. Meaning they have put the profit element and the business aspects of this particular field, well, they've given it prominence way ahead of the healthcare provision that is anticipated of them. We've read in the media, we read every day. Recently, there was a case of a patient being moved from the HDU to the ICU, being stuck in the lift for more than 2 hours. The miracle is that they survived. You hear of cases of patients who are stuck in hospital because bills can't be paid. You hear of cases of people who've passed away in hospitals who have been held back. But more importantly, you hear of cases in public hospitals as well as private, basic care, not fundamental, no surgery, nothing complicated, basic care not being taken. Why do I mention public as well as private? It's because they're all healthcare providers. Something happened over a decade ago that probably went unnoticed. And this is when many of our private hospitals actually became business entities. We call them private hospitals because they were not government, but they provided the healthcare services that were mandated and expected. The business element came in when they became what we actually call a private equity, meaning they were built up, made up to be profitable, found people who were interested in making more money, and then they were sold off. And one of the things they did was they changed the management. They reduced the costs by firing people who were considered professionals and employing people whose professionalisms were probably at best suspect. They employed cheap labor. And also, they paid executive bonuses for meeting targets. Now, the moment you put the issue of meeting profit targets, Kenya shilling targets on healthcare provision, what is a guarantee is that that healthcare provision will actually be not just reduced, but it will be eliminated. This is a situation that must change. Even as we progress and as we promote businesses, healthcare provision in this country must, and I state, must remain what it is. And the key mandate that it was intended for must be retained. It must provide healthcare.
They'll argue, the owners of these businesses, that they're still doing that. They are providing healthcare, and that's why you have people who are coming to seek those services in their institutions. Because when you come in, you will find that I have doctors, I have nurses, I've got all the facilities that are required. If you need, what do you call them? The tests.
The lab tests.
If you need lab services, you'll find those lab services. If you need anything, radiology, you'll find it. All those are being provided, and that is the core mandate of this institution. Now, the other thing is that because it's a business, you must look at the bottom line. So, this is where
let me ask the question, Eric, even as I hear what you're saying, how is it that the private hospitals that we knew of in this country, unless the government closed them, have you ever heard of one winding down voluntarily because it's not making ends meet? Have you ever heard? For as long as we've had private hospitals, the answer to that question is actually no. It is not that they do not make money. By the time they become PEs, or what you call private equities, it's not just a question of making money. It has to be a lot of money. It has to be money that an investor who is interested in making profits would actually look at and say, it is worth my while.
We've got to separate two things, CT, I think. One is the capitalist who's coming to invest in this organization, and the other one is the organization itself. So as a PE fund, if you set up a PE fund today and say we are collecting money from many people who are high net worth and they're looking for areas to invest and get a return, then as the managers of that PE fund, we look at what areas can we get a return from. And if we identify one of them to be in healthcare, we'll invest in that healthcare. And we bring in our managers because we're looking at the bottom line. However, we know that for this business to give us the return that we are seeking, it must provide the service. I think the good thing about having a PE fund or whatever fund, a venture capitalist or whoever coming to invest, is they allow you to be able to provide the service, and at the same time, they are making money.
Unfortunately, what we see here then, really very sadly then, is a bastardization of this entire process. Is because then people are being subjected to tests that they don't need. People are then being subjected to stay in hospital for longer periods than are necessary. And then people are being given now drugs that they actually, that they don't need because they want to make money. And that's where the problem lies here. Because then now you begin to do a dalliance with really what should be the case in somebody's health, because obviously somebody's health is their life. So when now you begin to prescribe drugs so that you can make this money over and above what you have, and somebody's life then is could potentially be hanging in the balance, we have a problem. When you're admitting somebody to spend the night in hospital so that they can pay some extra amount of money that they actually maybe wouldn't need, then there's a problem. Whereby you're testing somebody, running them through a whole battery of tests that they don't need because you can actually prescribe something right on the nose of it, then we have a problem. So then it now goes beyond trying to get to the bottom line as opposed to now doing over and above what is necessary, and then in some cases putting people's lives at risk for the shilling, for the all powerful, a shilling. And that's where the problem lies. To say that we need to do 1, 2, 3 and not realizing the value of this life for which this institution was initiated to protect in the first place, that is not then being protected, there's a problem. And I am in 1000% agreement that it must stop. It cannot be allowed to continue in this manner.
Eric, there's nothing wrong.
I think
even
we're in agreement.
these hospitals.
The problem I'm having is because we appear to be demonizing the investor. And the investor has done nothing wrong. The investor is investing in this as a business. I am looking at it as a business.
Oh no, Eric.
The people I think the people we should be looking at are the regulators. If you have weak regulation, that's your problem. As an investor, I've put in money in this entity, in this venture, and what I'm looking at is the bottom line. Am I getting something out of it? As the managers that I've put there, what is the business of a hospital? The business of a hospital is provide healthcare services. How do you provide those? You charge for everything that you're able to charge. That's how you're going to make money. And if you look at targets, now, of course, the allegation here in the media is the management of this hospital saying, look, guys, we are below our target. We need to improve and hit our target.
So keep somebody for an extra day
What's
when they
wrong with
could.
that?
No, keep somebody in hospital for an extra day, whereas they could have gone home. Give somebody medication for a longer period of time where actually it's not necessary, because we've got to understand,
Give
right?
them 4 types of painkillers.
4 types of painkillers.
That is wrong.
Injecting, because at the end of the day, what we want to look at, injecting poison into a body that they actually don't need it, right?
That is wrong.
That is wrong, and that's what we are saying. But
regulation.
These are the targets. These are the targets that
actually, Eric,
these are the targets that these officials are subjected to.
When you say that, but remember, one of the things, you see, the greater point here is breaking what I call public trust. Because for the longest time, outside the church, people felt safe in hospitals. They felt doctors were there to look after the interest of their health. And I am saying that this is a notion that is fast changing. And stories are bound to lend itself to the point that I'm trying to make. There is absolutely nothing wrong in making profit. None whatsoever. There's even nothing wrong in doing like some hospitals have done and going and investing in some other business that is profitable. There's nothing wrong with all that. But the core mandate that goes with the Hippocratic oath that we know doctors take, this really is it. If that oath has changed, and there's a business element, a sentence or two that was added to it that we didn't know, maybe this is something that we need to be told so that we understand that, it wasn't the old one. This one, in the 21st century, we've thrown in this line.
Hippocratic oath also says, also factoring in the investor.
Yes.
And the needs of the investor.
And it also takes into consideration that God helps only those who help
themselves.
Yes. So we're helping ourselves. No. I am saying that you can make profit and at the same time present a face that is acceptable and a face that promotes the very business that underlines the mandate of what you're supposed to
be doing.
Why do you think we hold our politicians to account? Why do we talk about our church leaders? Why do we hold them to account? Because there's a standard by which we expect them to go about their business. Because that is what they are there for. If they are not there for another business, then we would say, perhaps you need to change and go elsewhere where this particular way of doing things is more suitable, because it's clearly not suitable for this one. The people who get a big pass on that one are the politicians. We sort of like tell them, you can get away with anything and we don't care because we know you're this sort of person. Again, therein we're wrong because they need to be challenged because they were not always that way.
Yeah.
It's a story we talk about all the time.
Expecting people to be good just because you expect them to be good without having any checks and balances is a fallacy.
I agree completely.
That's where we all go wrong.
I agree.
And that's why I'm saying, even with the politicians, we have something with which to check them. And this is the electoral cycle. Every 5 years, you'll come back and you'll be answerable to what you've been doing, for what you've been doing. Every 5 years, you'll come back to me and tell me, this is what I told you I want to do, and this is what I achieved. And I'll tell you, you did well or you did not do well. I bring you back in office or I will not. The reason why we have regulation, like now we had the KFCB CEO here, we have all these regulatory bodies and authorities to ensure that people do the right thing. If any of them fails, we look at those that are supposed to do their job and they have failed. That's where I'm coming from. Yes, it's right for us to talk about doctors should not do this. Managements of hospitals should not, and now managements of hospitals, many of them are doctors, yes? So managements of hospitals should not do this. Those that are running private healthcare services should not be doing this and the other. But what happens when they don't do that? And they tell you, look, I'm just looking at my bottom line. I've got an investor somewhere. This PE fund is based out of some European
Most of them
capital,
are based
right?
outside.
And they have told me that I need to give them this much at the end of the year.
Eric, all that wouldn't matter if the quality of care that patients are supposed to receive was of the quality that they had previously received at probably a more reasonable cost.
Or even that which has promised to deliver.
The problem comes in when the service for which you're paying isn't provided as you have been informed, and these costs just seem to keep escalating. I myself has been the situation where I've taken myself to hospital because I had a problem with low blood pressure. Even I knew what my problem was. And there was an insistence that I should stay over, and I said, no. No.
For monitoring. Why are you arguing with the doctor, City?
A doctor managing whose body?
Yours.
Does he know what I'm feeling? No. Does he know what I'm thinking? I took myself
Why
there
did you seek their professional
because
help?
I wanted to be clear that it was only this.
And they're telling you, in my professional opinion, I think I should observe you.
And I told them to give me reasons as to why they should observe me because I'd been there for 4 hours. Is that not sufficient observation? What is this thing they're going to observe overnight? I'm going to sleep.
So in your opinion, you think that they were telling you to stay over so that they can make more money out of you?
Yes, they were. Because
Not
when they
always
brought
the
me that
case,
list,
CT.
I'm giving you an example. Eric, you're arguing with something that I'm the one who was there. I'm telling you what happened. This isn't something I was told.
Okay, so tell me they confessed.
So then when, no, we it wasn't an argument. We talked back and forth. And they said, you need to take this. I said, no, I don't. If I've had more than one episode of low blood pressure, I know what it is. I even know what to do. There's no guesswork here. Because it's happened before and I was told by people in that same hospital, not another one. So you can't say, Ati, I was seeking an alternate opinion. I wasn't. I didn't. And I said, I'll come back the following morning. And I did. This was not a life-threatening problem that I had. No. I just wanted to be sure. It was me who was being careful. I drove myself to hospital. Drove. Went, presented myself and said, this is how I'm feeling. Said, yes, you do have low blood pressure. But they then checked. They did this, which is what I wanted them to do.
I think you're just being a difficult patient, but let's go on for the sake of the conversation.
Again, for purpose of discussion, for the longest time, I don't know if there's a training of many of our doctors, but they actually don't like that conversation. They want to tell you, and then that needs to be final.
It ends here.
Yeah, but the unfortunate thing here is that doctors are human beings. And I can have a symptom of some ailment, but it may not be the only ailment that has those symptoms. So you cannot tell me it's only this. And that's why I will subject myself to that lengthy stay and all these tests that they're doing, just to determine that it's been narrowed down to what is the greatest probability. If, say, I'm given medication and it still doesn't work and I come back, all I'm saying is I understand the processes. But for the longest time, many doctors, they don't want a situation where you are talking back at them and saying, no. I have come across doctors who actually prefer that.
They want you to ask them questions.
Yeah, they want to talk to you about it.
They want you to understand what they're doing, their processes.
They want to give you a command which you must follow. No. Now, again, it's probably their training, but again, so long as the health that the patient went there for is provided the best of their ability and at a cost that is considered reasonable. Now, this particular hospital, the cost was very reasonable. In fact, I was shocked. I was actually very, very shocked when they told me, consultants, I said, are you sure? No, I actually asked because I expected more. Because this is a high-end hospital and the amount wasn't big. Where we then had a debate was the drugs because I had to find out, they had to tell me exactly what each drug was going to do.
And how many?
They're around 6.
Okay, so there you go. 18 minutes past 9 o'clock. This is the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. We're talking about now the society. Kenyans are losing faith in the healthcare system, in private healthcare providers especially. And that's the discussion that CT Muga is raising this morning on what is it, what's going wrong, and where should we correct this. We'll open up the conversation in this hour at 9:30 at 0719 012 600. That's 0719 012 600. Also join the conversation on our digital platforms, Spice FM KE on Facebook, at Spice FM KE on Twitter. Good morning.
.9 Spice FM, Mombasa. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Unright. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
0719 012 Let's open up the conversation. This is about public health, and the public is ready to comment. Alan, good morning.
Good morning.
How you
Good
doing?
morning.
Good morning, you guys.
Hi,
Good
Alan.
morning.
I think I'm all right. Eric, you're right. There's a risk of demonizing the investor.
Yep.
But if you look at trends on the continent, we are seeing an explosion of PE funds investing in services that are consumed even by the poor. Aberaji came here, they took away Java. Oh, there's another Swedish entity that took away Makini.
Yep.
Then the Ufanisi took away Hillcrest. Now in health, they have taken Metropole, they have gone into Avenue, they have gone everywhere. And you see, when a PE fund comes into play, the aim is to squeeze the asset so that you can get the returns, so they can give to your investor. So the big elephant in the house are PE funds, the best entities to fund
Health facilities.
Health facilities. That is the big question we must ask.
And what would you say?
I think the only problem is PE funds are not regulated. I've seen there's a small tiff last week or 2 weeks ago between Saiton and but that was just a money market, wealth management thing they were creating between Saiton and CMA. But if I was the one running the show, my guy, I would just say no PE funds in education, health. Education and health, especially
those key areas.
No PE funds, because even when you're reading about PE funds in Africa, one of the things that is also coming out is they're used by African elites to launder money and to round trip. If I make billions of shillings, I just go and invest in a PE fund and tell them to come and invest it back here.
Yes.
I think we really have to look at these PE funds,
how they are regulated,
and look the story the nation was running. It's a scandal, really. I mean, guys are being asked, to stay there longer just because some bloody PE fund is trying to sweat the asset.
Or somebody's trying to meet a target.
Let me also have Zachary is joining us from Nakuru. Zachary, what's your view on this? Thank you, Alan.
Oh, hi guys.
Hi, Zachary.
Mine is just to tell you are doing good work, and you should pay me, because actually I'm taking time to tell anybody.
You are our ambassador in Nakuru.
Fantastic.
I appreciate it.
All right,
And
Zachary,
let me tell you guys.
we hereby appoint you as Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary for Spice
Ah,
FM
wow.
in Nakuru.
And
Ah, well-
Zachary, you must know that we are not paying you for campaigning for that political post that you are requiring. So you should thank us also.
You are doing good work. And if I was a legislator,
Thank you
if I
very
was a
much.
legislator, if I was a legislator,
Yes.
I would actually bring a legislation that every Kenyan should give at least 30 minutes of your program.
To listen to us. Now let's talk about healthcare and PE funds.
Sure. And let me tell you, everybody in Kenya or in the world now is thinking about profit.
Yep.
If you go back to the villages, the guys who own just basic kiosks are thinking of how they can make their small businesses appear good on the paper that is there, and with an idea, with the hope of selling it later, okay, to a prospective buyer, and of course make a profit, okay.
Yes.
And in the process, they are going to employ cheap labor, cheat on paper. And that is exactly what the guy, our studio guest, the earlier studio guest, Mr. Mutua, was speaking about the media houses investing in very, 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 very cheap labor, okay?
Yeah.
And therefore employing half-baked journalists, okay? And we are getting some low deals, okay?
Everywhere,
Look at
in all sectors.
Definitely in all sectors. We are getting low deals because everyone is thinking about profit.
It's jumping for the bottom line of their investment.
Definitely.
Zachary, let's hear also from Anne, who's calling in from Machakos. Anne, good morning.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning.
How are you doing, Anne?
I'm fine. Now, my interest is on the healthcare.
Yes.
Being a healthcare worker, and looking at the situation that the patients are going through, it would be interesting to see UHC coming to reality and not demonizing the investor. Let the private do their part, but then let's empower. If the government could empower the public health system, so that if I choose to go to private, it's by choice, but not because the public hospitals lack the services that I need.
I get it. I get your
Thank
point.
you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Anne.
Okay.
So actually, Anne is pointing to the fact that why do we have a proliferation of private healthcare providers? It's pointing to a failure of the public healthcare.
It's not necessarily a failure of the public health sector, really. Not really, no. It's if you're going to talk about failure, it's the failure of the government to ensure that they actually carry out a certain function that they ought to have. And even then, I don't think, because there's a multiplicity of issues here. You want to encourage business.
Yep.
You want to give your citizenry options.
Yes.
Okay? And again, these people who own hospitals are investors. You want to give them an opportunity to also do the same. So at some point, we can only judge the government on the activities that we see within the hospitals.
the public sector.
Yes, that is all we can do. But if you're talking about private hospital, the gentleman who talked about regulation, it was you who began it actually, Eric. It is true. We do need to put in regulations to ensure that even those private hospitals run along the lines that we intend them.
That
Because
we intend them to do. Hold on. Let's hear from Janet. Janet has called in. Good morning, Janet.
Good morning. How are you?
We're fine, thank you. Where are you calling from this morning?
I'm calling from Garden Estates. Now, my contribution to that.
Yes.
I actually had a case at Nairobi Women's Hospital, and it's very true when they say they don't discharge patients because they've taken my sister there. And I remember they wanted to hold her at ICU, even when she's stable. And I really had to throw a tantrum for them to remove her from ICU to the general ward. Now, the other thing was, for the condition I'd taken her in for, they were requiring her to do a physiotherapy, I don't know what, examination or something, and the nutritionist and all that kind of thing. And I was asking them, how is this related to what she has she's coming to be medicated. Now, I think from all that anyway, I think what happens is, what I decided is there's so many Catholic mission hospitals which are providing fantastic care. They're not expensive, they're affordable to the Mwananchi, and that is where basically we're going to resort to go to public hospitals. And you know what? If the government was giving good health services in the public sector, even these private entities will not be having the business. I mean, everyone will actually be going to the public health sector. Yeah, but the reason we go to private is because you have a patient in critical care. I asked them, can I take my sister to KNH? I could not get an ICU bed. So I resorted to go to
a private
Nairobi
hospital.
Women.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when you go there, for instance...
But Janet,
for
let me
ICU,
ask you, when you raise these questions at private facilities, even in public, when you ask, what is this for? Why do I need my patient to be seen by a physician or by a nutritionist? Are you given an explanation?
some of the doctors will try and they will be a bit miffed when you ask them that. They feel like they're small demigods. They're not supposed to whatever questions. But for me, I tell someone, you know what, this is my body. I can't go to Toyota Kenya and get a spare, but you better explain what you're doing to me, or I go and seek healthcare elsewhere, you know?
Yep.
But don't get agitated. You need to explain to me like a layman. If you came to my sector, I'm in construction, I was telling you what we normally do in buildings, you will not understand. So it doesn't mean I'm stupid. I can understand. If you told me the same way, I would explain to you why we are doing A, B, C, and D in our sector.
Right.
So that's the other thing. I mean, and I think people need to understand that you can question doctors. This notion that a doctor is not supposed to be questioned, I think I don't understand it.
It's
And
misguided.
I think that is one of the things. Yeah, it's very misguided. That's the word.
Thank you very much,
But I
Janet.
think, yeah, thank you.
Asante sana. Well, the conversation continues. Of course, we're talking about private health facilities and the story that emerged on social media of last week, towards the end of the week, about private facilities looking at the bottom line, where management of these private facilities is actually talking to their teams and telling them, delay this person, we need more admissions, we need to make more and more money. And coming to explain to it from the angle of the investor, many of them being private equity funds that are looking at the bottom line. They come and want to ensure that this organization is as efficiently run as possible. And by efficiency is manage costs.
Anything
Manage
goes.
costs so that you can make more money. So we are looking at the moral and the ethical side of this. We are also looking at the regulatory part of this. We are also looking at the role of the patients. We are looking at the role of the doctors in the hotel and the hospital management in this. Well, they also play in the hospitality sector, actually. It's 9:30. Let's take a look at what's happening on the roads, and then we continue the conversation. 0719 012 600.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu. Traffic.
Okay, we're still trying to figure out what's going on Langata Road today. It's quite the traffic jam. Of course, we had the incident earlier around Rongai, whereby now that has spilled over to Langata Road. So we have traffic as far back as the Bomas of Kenya. It is not moving, very, very slowly. People who started about an hour and a half ago are just to reach the Timor roundabout now. Also looking at Ngong Road and right around Naivasha Road area junction, we have quite the traffic situation there also, with police having set up an operation to bust the matatus, as it were. So that is affecting traffic there as well. Mombasa Road, of course, giving up the vibes that we can't really deal with right now except just be patient. And coming off Waiaki Way with what we had of the collapse of that wall on Red Hill Road today, that has affected traffic. So north, south, east and west, generally through the city today, it is traffic. And so just be patient, folks. If we find an alternate, we'll let you know. Spice FM KE on Twitter. Let us know what you see and let's see how we can help.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Before we took the call from Janet, you were talking about regulation.
I was saying that, you see, as you said it occurred to me, and then this gentleman called Alan called, I realized, actually, there are certain steps that the government must take. Yes, to promote business, but also primarily to actually look after the welfare of its people. There's nowhere where it says you can't make money and yet not do the sort of things that we see being done in our hospitals. You see, it looks like it's a faulty business model. And now they're now behaving like people who are in the business of usury, meaning, what name do we normally give them?
What do you say, faulty business people? The business of usury.
Yes, the business of usury, yes. Loan sharks, okay?
Loan sharks.
Yes.
Hawkers.
Yes.
Not hawkers. Loan sharks.
Loan sharks. Why the term usury is brought in? Because it borders really very thinly on thievery. But it brings in an element of enforcement and discomfort with it, okay? The business model that works, and this is what many SACCOs have thrived on, is the repeat client, meaning they make these terms of doing business so pleasant that you want to come back again and again and again. And businesses like the banks have understood it. When they entered the fintech business, this is what they understood. They understood that if these guys keep borrowing money from us and we make it easy for them to borrow and they keep returning it, we will make money. So it's the volume. These fellows don't seem to understand that their business model chases away clients. Because they will go somewhere else where they can get the same treatment and probably not hassled as much.
And also that if they are treated a certain way, the likelihood of them sharing their experience with others who then will not want to come to those businesses is very, very high. Because I have a bad experience, regardless, I'm going to share it.
Yes.
Right?
If you have
and
a good
of course, bad news spreads like wildfire. If I have a good experience,
you'll share it.
Same thing, I will share it. So the likelihood of people that I know or people within my circles then to come and visit that establishment goes very close to nil. And that's something that you must understand. At the end of the day now, when people are suffering, because you call it what you may, but it is suffering at the end of the day. You keep me for an extra 2 days when I didn't need to be there. You give me medicine that I don't need. You submit me to a certain number of tests that I actually don't need. I'm suffering.
I think
and then
they
I come
do
to
understand.
find out the
they
truth
do understand
later.
the value of having a good rapport with their clients. And in this case, the client, of course, is the patient. If you see those messages that go around, you'll see one of the managers saying, remember, our patients are very important. We must make sure that our patients are happy with our service.
Yes, but
right?
this importance that
Hold
you're
on.
speaking
Hold
of
on.
is not
Hold on.
important in making sure that their healthcare or their welfare is taken care of.
Eric, carry on, please.
It is in how you present yourself to them. Now, of course, if they get healed and they go home immediately, you're not having a repeat client. Repeat client in a hospital is
no.
In the immediate sense is that I'm getting this out of this particular ailment. I'm making as much money as possible. But now that's the unethical side of looking at things.
You have a point, Eric.
The PE funds, when they come and they're trying to restructure, they also know that for this business to continue being a going concern, I must ensure that I retain my clients. One of the strategies is client retention.
Yes,
they look at that. They look at how can I service this particular industry.
You retain your clients by annoying them.
How can I service this particular industry in the best ways possible? Reduce costs, but also ensure that they are coming back.
Look,
but they're not going to come. This is the thing.
Have a clean facility.
Like
have
now,
doctors who are talking very well to the people.
But just
even
take,
if
for
I'm
example,
admitting you,
what
I'm making you feel like, you know what, City, your heart could give. I need you to stay here overnight.
But what have we seen? Just what we have seen recently. That alone is to stop everybody who read those messages or saw what has come out in social media. Just as an example, it would be hard. I would be hard pressed to find people who would say, okay, this establishment, let me go there. This is the best place to go. It's counterintuitive.
Because they've been caught
because
out.
of how exactly because they've been caught out, and then
If
they realize
out,
this actually is what happens there. It goes against what they're trying to do in the very beginning, in the first place. You're trying to get more people to come in by treating them well and talking to them nicely, so you can keep them for an extra day or two, and then somebody finds out in the future that actually what you're trying to do is make more money. I wouldn't go there. So they've missed it there completely. And unfortunately, maybe their tactics for covering up things are actually not good, because this then actually would then be their downfall.
Remember, some hospitals say like, what's the name of this? Nairobi Women's Hospital. One of the things they were known for was the Gender Violence Recovery Center.
Yeah.
Very, very popular. You see, it was a service they were providing that nobody else had actually championed.
It was free and they understood.
Yes. Now, when you have such a service and it was supported by many people, I remember the first time it came to my attention was this basketball player, Jordan.
Yeah, the mother, Dolores Jordan.
Yes, she came in. People wanted to contribute. They felt this. And now, that was smart, in my opinion. If you're going to have such a business, there must be an arm of that business that seems to do charitable work. Look at our banks with the billions they make. They do charitable work. Wings to Fly, some educational fund, plant trees. They do things that you can see, okay. Any smart business has to have a corporate social responsibility face. And it must sometimes be louder than the profits you're making. Yes. In my opinion, I'm saying that is, in my opinion, good business. So even when someone wants to criticize you, they pause and say, you know something. Okay.
But they do help us.
They do help.
They need this money to come and help.
Yes. And also,
nice.
if indeed they got their PR right, because sometimes they don't get their PR right, then they would know that there's funds they keep aside for people who may not actually be able to pay because they can't pay.
Yes.
And that alone, I'm not saying I have a perfect solution, but there are many ways of doing business and yet presenting yourself in the best possible light. Why is it, for instance, that we have other hospitals in this country that are really exorbitant? I mean, exorbitant. People
Ridiculously
still
so.
go there. Ridiculously exorbitant.
I'm telling you, the day you start exposing these hospitals one by one. So now this particular expose seems to have concentrated on one particular hospital.
It did.
Right?
It did.
But if you open it up, you'll find that all these hospitals, even the exorbitant ones, you'll find the reason why you've been admitted into that very expensive ward is sometimes
it's your insurance cover.
Yes. Especially that. They can see that you are able to pay. Are you able to pay? You are high net worth, so you can pay, or you have a very good insurance cover, which can pay. The reason why insurance companies even had to hire doctors, so that they can, every time they get a claim, a doctor looks and sees, was this a necessary procedure for this particular symptom? Did this person, is the hospital trying to scheme us? And still it happens. Which brings me back to regulation. When it comes to insurance regulation, for instance, you've seen now the new regulations for insurance have made insurance companies split their businesses. Short-term and long-term businesses, separate them. They are not the same, right? Look at how robust that regulation is. Look at how robust the Capital Markets Authority is in trying to ensure that we are regulating people who are playing in the capital markets. Look at the Central Bank of Kenya and its regulations. Then now let's look at our healthcare. Who is regulating our healthcare? The Medical Council. How robust is it? What's the composition of this council? How much power? You're
talking about the Medical and Dentist Board, that one.
Yes. And nowadays it's called the council, right? How much power and authority does it have? What should it be doing to ensure that when you go to all these facilities, if you open a facility and you're running a facility, this is the basic minimum requirements that you should meet. This is how you should treat your clients. This is how much you should charge.
Actually,
regulator.
Now that you ask the question, it is interesting because, again, their PR is horrible because the thing that they are known for are all the bad things. The primary issue here being they always side with their fellow doctors.
Yes.
And they are the body that are mandated to even discipline and take action when there has been some breach of some medical ethics.
And when it's not that, we see them going around the country, or especially in those low income areas, and shutting down pharmacies and clinics.
Yes.
Just because those people do not belong to their profession. But those that belong to the profession and they are misbehaving in the profession, how much weight do you see them now?
Isn't it something that should raise some eyebrows and that people should be at least a little bit uncomfortable with, to see the way in which things are going? Because when you talk about a healthcare system whose primary mandate is to take care of the health of individuals, and then we see this kind of practice taking place. And like you said, this is one example of one institution.
They don't crack the whip.
Doing this. They don't crack the whip.
No, they don't.
They don't. This is one institution where people are aware of what's going on. Colleagues who are involved in these practices, and they're very aware. If anything, what they do is protect them. And we're talking about vis-a-vis protecting life. It should be an eyebrow-raising experience. It should be something that we should be able to speak out against and say, I mean, this is
the horror stories you hear.
This is what was hinged upon in the first place.
Yes.
CT, that it must stop.
Yes.
It should not be allowed.
Some of these horror stories and
no.
people constantly stream to India is for such reasons. And the story is the same. They'll tell you, this is what I was charged in India. This is what I was charged. It's a fraction, and you wonder what on earth is going on here.
Yes. Right.
And they don't blink. That same ministry is involved here. That ministry of impunity. Yes, it is, because we don't have that many doctors in this country, and they know the service. And by the time you go to see a doctor, it's not for fun.
Oh my goodness, no. By the time you're taking
your life is in danger.
Yes.
And that's the advantage they seem to have. And yet there are many other doctors who do exactly what they're supposed to do. And that's why many of them still remain even in public service. But they are a fast receding breed, though. Everybody wants to make the Kenya shilling, isn't it?
Yes.
Now, consider, for instance, the Association of Architects. Kenya Association of Architects. You know, what these people don't seem to understand is that they're going the same way that our politicians have gone. They're going the same way that the reputation that have given our police force the reputation they have. They're going the same way that the church has. Same. Because people understand what your mandate is and you don't seem to fulfill it. You know, there are very few places you should actually go to where your health would be more guaranteed than the public hospitals.
Right.
Yes.
They have the best trained personnel. I remember not many years ago when Kenyatta improved their services so much, personnel were leaving private hospitals which they thought paid better to come and work at Kenyatta.
Come and work at KNH.
Which means they had gotten somebody who understood what they were supposed to do. They were managing the business well.
And they were doing it.
They were doing it. They were doing what they were supposed to do. Not complicated. Right. And what is interesting, for them to pay those salaries means they were making money.
Yes.
Did I ever hear of anybody complain it was expensive? No. We didn't, did we? No.
Because it wasn't expensive.
It wasn't
precisely. As in compared to, you're comparing it to the private hospitals.
Yes, I am.
Somebody was offering the same level of service, but for twice the amount.
Yes, and these guys they're both making money.
They're both making money.
Yes, and yet the service is being provided for, rather. So it's not something that we're discussing in the realm of these things which are impossible and which divine intervention is required. No, it's a reality, and people who have their mindset to doing what they're supposed to do can actually get it done. Yes, they can.
And now, facing the eye of what is the reality that if you want to do it, you can. But the fact that you don't do it shows that you really then don't care. And then the value then that can now be placed to see that the value then that is placed on something like human life actually is very, very low. And then this is what I'm saying should be cause for worry, should be cause for concern, and should not be taken sitting down. It cannot be the case that people's lives continually be. What if something had happened?
You know, to be fair also to the doctors and some of the prescriptions. Are we going into... Yes, why don't we go into then I can...
Let's do the break and then we come back and CT Muga will tell us to be fair to the doctors and some of the prescriptions that they give. And also you can chime in the conversation 0719 012 600. That's 0719 012 600. Spice FM KE Twitter, Spice FM KE Facebook. Good morning. It's 9:45.
Spice FM, Nakuru. The 80s have never sounded so good.
My favorite songs of the 1980s.
94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
The only radio station in the country that's giving you 4 hours of straight talk between 6 a.m. and 10 a.m. every weekday. This is Spice FM, and the show is The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. You are with me, Eric Latif. We have CT Muga and Nduoko. So, CT, tell us about the benefit of the doubt.
Well, listen, what I was saying was this. I had the benefit of having an insurance cover. And because this insurance cover, I actually was taken, I was telling you will go to this ward. So I went there. It was more like a luxury hotel room, really. But when you're sick, believe me.
That's the last thing you're thinking about.
Yeah, you look at it, you notice mentally, but that's it. Now, I wanted a tabulation of the medication I was taking and the cost of my stay there on a daily basis. I just asked, and they said it was possible. And I picked up on some antibiotics and I said, please explain to me why these things cost so much. It was a lot of money. And they explained. And they said, this is what it does. And I said, what about the cheaper variety?
Oh, right, of the same.
They said, it'll do the same thing, but this one is far more powerful. And it'll do this and it'll do the other. They gave me a whole array of things. And they didn't lie. it was true. Then I ask the other question. So somebody who doesn't have a health cover and cannot afford this particular drug,
You give them the other one.
yeah, you will get well. But this one was far more comprehensive and far more potent. Okay? Now, if the services you pay for are supposed to be that room, now the truth of the matter is, when you're that well, you want to get well.
When you're that sick, you want to get well.
Let's say when you're well.
Yes, you did.
When you're that unwell.
Clearly. When you're that unwell, this well featuring in the sentence, the un and the well.
Right. It's not taking you well.
No, it's not taking me well at all. It's treating me unwellly. What is for sure is that people pay because they believe they will get a superior service. And I'm saying, sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. The service isn't in the room. The service is in the care that you receive and the outcome of that particular care. But aligned to this must be the cost. You must feel this cost is reasonable. And the cost that my treatment, the cost of my treatment, in the absence of that card, I would have had to call for Harambe.
Yeah, to get it done.
Yes.
Was it justified?
According to them, it was.
But this is the thing. By the time they're making these
determinations,
according to them, it's justifiable
It
end
is-
to end.
it
It
is
doesn't matter for
justifiable.
whom they will be making the explanation to.
Yes.
They've already gone through. Look at some of the things that we saw last week. There's an agreed platform from whence they operate. Didn't we agree on this?
Yep.
This is what we have agreed
Our
on.
KPIs are we must have
For
X
today,
number of
it's
people
X
admitted
X number of
in our
beds
hospitality
filled
side.
every day. So everything is justifiable, and they've done it in such a way that, remember, these people that are going to fill up these beds are going to consume this medication, whatever. They are the ones that we must pander to in order to meet these KPIs. So we must keep them comfortable. Any explanation that they need from us, we must make sure that we give it in a way that they will understand, and not just understand, but accept.
Let's flip the coin a bit, all right? If you are the management of a certain hospital, you know that at the end of the day, for me to be able to run this hospital and offer these services next month, I need this amount of money. I need to generate this amount of money. How do I generate it? What are the revenue streams? There's a pharmacy, there's admission, there's this and the other. So you have to come up with KPIs for each of those units.
But keeping people there when they don't need to be, administering medication.
If I don't make this much from the pharmacy side, and I don't make this much from my hospitality side, that is, i.e. the beds, I am not going to be able to make money to run this hospital next month.
But then it goes against the code of ethics.
And this is why you have to remove yourself from that whole thing of code of ethics and look at it as a business. I need to be in business.
When you're dealing with human life, and health, you cannot remove the ethical part.
The business element cannot take precedence over everything.
It's not taking precedence, by the way. Don't get me wrong.
It can't trump it.
It's not taking precedence. I'm just looking at it from, if I want to offer this service, if I want to make sure that next month I am offering this service to my fellow countrymen, citizens who are coming in here sick, and I know I have doctors. So I've brought together a pool of doctors, highly qualified. I interviewed them, and this is how qualified they are. They've come in. For me to be able to offer this service, I need this.
But you understand
as a manager,
this overrides,
I've got to look at it and say, this is what we offer.
It overrides the fundamental principle of why you established as an institution in the first place. And once you do that, you cannot continue to operate in that manner.
How is it overriding?
Eric, once upon
or
a time,
it even undermines it, rather.
All these
in
facilities
this case.
in the hospitals were genuinely free. Then came the concept of cost sharing, remember?
Yes.
Now,
in the public hospitals.
Yes. I think it was an excellent thought. And government hospitals were actually generating an income. And if you look at hospitals that actually do what they're supposed to do, they do generate an income. But they're also able to cater for those patients who do not have the means to pay for these things. They do. But the reason why one didn't hear of much noise was because the drugs were available. You got the care, meaning when you left there, your needs were looked after. When I left that hospital, I was well. I was feeling well. That cost to me, I looked and said, okay, it's been paid for. I was happy.
In public facilities, you see, because you know that there is money coming in from the government, from the taxpayer, so you know you're already covered to a certain extent.
For instance, your salaries are taken care of.
Yes, those ones are. So I'm looking to bridge a financial gap of 40%. And this 40%, this is how I'm going to do it. If you ask any hospital manager anywhere, they'll tell you they look at it as a business.
Well, actually, even if you ask
they have those
insurance
KPIs.
companies, they will tell you that the one business they don't really like getting into is health. Because making money from health is tricky. They will actually tell you that.
There's a divide in some sense that they don't want to have to cross from one side to the other.
No, it's just because they get played. That's not. It's not because of their ethics.
No, I'm saying they don't want to. I'm prescribing here. You actually don't want to.
There's someone who sent me a message, and what they're talking about, I think you also have it. They're talking about. They said, you see, my friend had to pay 50,000 as a deposit. Now, 3 days in the ward, and I know what the bill will be. Okay. But even the private clinics we are referred to there, they are part of this scheme. So they're saying you'll go to this place where they pay less.
It's a cartel.
Yes, but in some hospitals where I've seen, and this is where this ministry of impunity comes in, you'll be treated and you're told to go to that pharmacy.
Right.
And they're saying, but you're supposed to have the drugs. Says, yes, we have paracetamol.
We don't have the drugs that you require.
No, the other ones you're going to buy. And you will find there's some private hospitals that also, now this is the joke, they do not have certain facilities, but they will send you to a public hospital because that public hospital has those facilities.
However, the administration fees and all of that in terms of consultancy fees,
they've sorted you out. Yes.
Or
you've jumped the queue, basically.
Exactly. And now that private hospital and private individuals with their private practices who are also buying this equipment, you will then be sent to that individual whom they know has that equipment to perform the test that you require. Yes.
Of course, if I'm in this facility, CT, and I know that Dr. CT across the road has opened and has bought this particular equipment, I can send you there.
No, actually, you're doing it because you're doing your friend a favor and you want to keep the cartel going.
You're
not doing it because...
There's one on the other. There's one I know that there's congestion here, and there's other that
but
I
you also know this is a good doctor.
And the reason why Dr. CT is investing is also because he knows there's need.
Yes.
So I'm just sending you there because I know you can get sorted there, and Dr. CT, I can vouch for him.
And you will, and usually you will get sorted. But it is now, again, the issue of the cost.
Yep.
See, as we talk about the bad practices, it isn't as though these hospitals don't provide a valuable service.
Of course not. No.
The point is that they could provide a better service.
They could provide a better service. And then you don't want to... You actually don't want patients that you have or potential clients, customers, potential patients to see that you're teeter-tottering on the side of ethics when it comes to the care that you're actually providing, whether there's money involved or not. You don't want that to be the face of what you're presenting. Yeah. That perhaps, okay, there could be a place where we're going to jump overboard now when it comes to, are they going to keep me longer than they should? Are they going to administer drugs that they shouldn't? Are they going to subject me to tests that I actually don't need? You don't want people walking the door asking those questions, especially if you're running a business, because this is what you're there to protect in the first place. You don't want that to be the question. No, absolutely.
In light of this expose that has come out since last week and of course covered in the weekend papers, what would you like to see? What action?
You know, everything that was reported there, depending on the perspective you want to take, is actually a very interesting and nice picture. In that, someone can actually start a hospital, grow it, get these people who understand partnering, who understand private equity, and then you can grow to now buy other businesses that are profitable. It is a good story. Then you can even sell your interest. It is a good story. Where it becomes a bad story is that your silent partners, the patients, don't seem to have benefited out of this entire arrangement fully, not as much as you have.
Your silent but pertinent partners. Yeah.
The partners without whom you didn't have a business,
exactly,
or the startup that brought you there. That's why this becomes a story.
They got treated.
Yes. They did get treated.
That's what they wanted out of this.
They did get treated, but they could have gotten treated better for what they were paying. They could have gotten treated better.
Better.
No, not just cheaper, better. Why do I mention better? When you go to a restaurant, you choose the restaurant you want to go to. And usually you know this one costs a little more. You have an idea, isn't it?
Yes.
That meat you're eating, these cows don't travel from some other country to work in that restaurant. Same country.
Yeah.
But we choose. Now, unfortunately, when we get unwell, we don't choose to be unwell. But still, when we go to this hospital, we understand.
Yes, and you're choosing this hospital.
The complaint is not about the hospital and the cost primarily. The cost becomes an issue when the care you expected doesn't meet certain standards. That's where the problem comes in.
What would you like to see?
What I'd like to see? Whom? Well, what I'd like to see is the regulator, since you've given me this wonderful idea, and I know where to point to, if we could insist on certain standards, how to do this, I don't know. How this could be enforced, I actually don't know. But if certain standards were required of hospitals and those who determine these standards are made, if you could upgrade you and grade you and determine that when you're this grade, these are the costs that you essentially price control.
Yeah.
Regulate it more. Then Perhaps, but I actually cannot say that I know how that can be done. So I'm just borrowing a leaf from other areas of endeavor where certain
Well,
things
you've seen what kind of
it
action
works.
has
It's
been
regulated,
taken.
and you
Yeah.
said like you can't charge. This is you. This is your margin. Because this is where you are. If you improve your services, you're taken here. Then you're allowed to charge this because with these charges, we know you provide this.
And the other.
Or there should be regular checks, for example. So somebody who's an inspector comes and sees, so why do we have this number of people admitted in your facility? Let's look at their files. So this inspector is a doctor and sees, does Nduoko deserve to be on this bed? Right?
Yes.
Was she admitted procedurally? I mean, was it right for her to be
somebody
admitted
doing
for
the
the
regular
condition?
checks and checks. I think
Just to
maybe
ensure
that's
that
what need,
people are not being admitted for cases that don't deserve to be admitted.
Admitted, yes.
And the kind of treatment that you're being given, there should be somebody who does there.
The example of the insurance companies and how they employed doctors and how they even visit you in a hospital
Yes.
to ensure that what is being said is done. Now, that is a step.
The example actually is for the school system. So you have school inspectors come sit at the back of the classroom and see what
listen
How,
to
what's
listen.
the procedure, right?
Do.
Well, I mean, definitely. I think especially when we see things like this, because once you see such complaints mushrooming, it's actually indicative of a deeper problem and probably one that's widespread. So time for the questions to continue being asked and then, yes, calling for things like regulation, especially when human life hangs in the balance.
Thank you very much for tuning in to the Situation Room this morning, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. Join us again tomorrow, same time. My name is Eric Latif. We have Nduoko and C.T. Muga. Tomorrow we'll be joined by the ODM Secretary General, Edwin Sifuna. We'll be talking about BBI and ODM's position on this BBI. Of course, between now and 3, you know the drill. It's uninterrupted music, and then 3 to 7, you've got Monique joining you